Chapter 5097. It was enough time for a round trip, but Butterball did not come back. Chen looked at the sky and started a fire. He obviously did not think that Butterball had run away with those things, even though those things were indeed very precious. Did something happen? But what happened? Did he encounter a Six Forces State lawbreaker beast? Or someone else? The former was unlikely because Six Forces State lawbreaker beasts were rarely encountered in the periphery, and it would be difficult for a Five Forces State lawbreaker to kill Kant. As for the others, it was even more impossible. After all, a lawbreaker was noble. Who would dare to attack him? Chen guessed that something had happened in the city. In Kant's residence, Butterball held his head in his hands and squatted in a corner, his body trembling. His breath was very weak, as if he had been seriously injured. Phoebe and the others stood on the other side, looking at Butterball worriedly. A man in a black robe leaned back on a chair and said, "Have you thought it through?" Butterball raised his head and said timidly, "Sir, I really don't know where he is. I snuck out." The man in the black robe stood up and clenched his fists, his knuckles cracking. "So, you want to try again?" "Don't hit him. He'll die if you continue," Phoebe hurriedly said. "Kant, quickly tell him where Chen is." "I'm not lying. I stole Chen's things and snuck out." Butterball said again, "I don't know where he is." "It seems that you won't give up until you see the coffin." A cold, murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the man in the black robe. He walked towards Kant step by step. Kant was so scared that his body was trembling, but he still did not tell Chen where he was. Bang! Kant's body left the corner and rolled away. "You reckless dog! How dare you lie to me?" The black-robed man stepped forward and kicked Kant's head again. Kant let out a cry of pain as his body was sent flying again. "I've heard about your matter. A dignified spellbreaker actually became a dog for a spirit caster." The black-robed man repeatedly stomped his feet, landing either on the head or the chest. Facing this existence, Butterball could only try his best to hold his head. One kick after another. Hearing that booming sound, Phoebe and the others were frightened, but they didn't dare to resist. At this moment, they were also filled with anger. Phoebe couldn't help but shout, "Kongda, hurry up and tell us!" "Yeah, just tell me where Chen is, and everything will be fine." His other companions also spoke out. Obviously, they felt that it was not worth it to lose their lives for Chen. Butterball's aura grew weaker and weaker. The black-robed man was still kicking and scolding. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the door. "He's a spellbreaker. Don't kill him." "Andrew, it's already dark. Let's talk about it tomorrow." It was Spicer's voice. As a Six Forces realm spellbreaker, his words carried some weight. "All right, I'm tired from today. Let's talk about it tomorrow." "I hope you're still so tough tomorrow." The black-robed man glanced at Kant with disdain, then turned and left. After he left, Phoebe and the others immediately surrounded him. Looking at the weak Kant, Phoebe said angrily, "Why are you protecting him? Do you really want to die?" Butterball was silent. Sanglari took out a beam of energy and placed it in front of Kant. "I've known Chen for a very long time, and he's a troublemaker. Listen to Phoebe, stay away from him, or he'll kill you sooner or later." Kant took the energy and began to refine it, not saying a word during the process. "Think about it carefully tonight. Is it worth it?" Phoebe patted Kant's shoulder, saying, "I've secretly asked Spicer. That guy came from the depths and is truly ruthless. If you go against him again, he'll definitely kill you. Being a spellbreaker won't save you. Think about it. For a Chen, is it worth it?" But no matter how they tried to persuade him, Kant didn't say a word. He was naturally afraid of death, but he also felt that it wasn't good to expose Chen like this. Chen said before among the group he was the most likely to survive if something happened. Although he wasn't good with words, he wasn't stupid. He began to refine the pure soul power, trying to recover as soon as possible. After his injuries were completely healed, The sky was still dark. Butterball quietly left the room and hurried in the night. It wasn't as dark as during the day. Fortunately, Kant was also a 5-strength state cultivator, so it wasn't difficult for him to move. He prayed silently in his heart that he wouldn't encounter a 6-strength state lawbreaker beast, or else he would definitely die. Even if it was a 5-strength state cultivator, it would be difficult for him to fight in the dark. It took more than twice as long as usual. Butterball finally saw the bonfire in the dark night. He quickly walked forward. Zi Qin, who was sitting cross-legged, heard the movement and opened his eyes. In the dark night, his eyes were shining. "It's Kant." Zi Qin's expression changed slightly. The other party shouldn't have come at this time. According to his estimation, the other party might have been delayed by something, and even if he came, it would be tomorrow. Butterball quickly approached. After seeing Zi Qin, he took the martial crystal source and said in a low voice, "Hurry up and leave. Someone wants to harm you." Zi Qin took the martial crystal source, but didn't leave. He looked into the distance. "Hurry up. What are you waiting for?" Kant glanced at Zi Qin. "Kant, you did well." At that instant, a voice could be heard coming from behind. After hearing the voice, Kant's expression changed tremendously. It was the person who had tortured him for the entire day. "As expected, this is the only way he won't be suspicious of you." The voice continued, "You've succeeded, right? Is he dead?" Kant's face instantly turned pale. He glanced at Zi Qin and tried to explain. Zi Qin raised his hand and interrupted him. "Go wait at the side." There was no need for him to explain. Regardless of the person's intention, there was no way Zi Qin would kill Butterball. If he really wanted to kill him, he would have done so a long time ago. The sky was slightly brighter. The person leading the group was a man in a black robe, followed by 4 people. One of them was Spike. He was not familiar with Zi Qin, thus he wouldn't care if Zi Qin was dead or alive. Thus he had come up with a little plan. They did not leave, but hid in the dark. As expected, Kant was tricked. Thus they followed him here. The plan was to protect Kant. Unexpectedly, after arriving at this place, Andrew actually used a few heart-wrenching words to kill Kongda with a borrowed knife. Luckily, Zi Qin did not interfere. "It's not easy to find you." The man glanced at Zi Qin. "Now, come back with us." Zi Qin stared at him without saying a word. The man continued, "Don't worry, we won't harm you. However, the higher-ups need your cooperation to tell you something." Zi Qin shook his head and said, "I don't trust you." "It doesn't matter if you trust me or not. Just come with me." Chapter 5098. Andrew looked at Zi Qin indifferently as a cold smile appeared on his face. "Do you want to live or die?" Zi Qin did not care about the threat of a 6-forces state cultivator. This was because he had already killed many of these people. He looked at Butterball. Kant wanted to explain, but Zi Qin threw something at him. It was the martial crystal source. There were 2 of them. "You!" Kant looked at Zi Qin in surprise. Zi Qin waved his hand and signaled Kant to stay away. Andrew looked at Zi Qin's action and said disdainfully, "Why? Do you want to challenge me?" Then he laughed out loud. His laughter was full of disdain. However, the 4 people behind him did not laugh. Unlike Andrew, who came from the depths of Pofa City, the 4 of them were 6-forces state cultivators. Spicer, especially, knew Zi Qin very well. Right now, if Andrew could not stop Zi Qin, then what awaited them would definitely be death. If Zi Qin wanted to kill, the 4 of them would not be able to stop him. Interesting. Andrew noticed the abnormality of the 4 people behind him. He smiled faintly and said, "Since you're here, I might as well show you what I'm made of. I'll let you frogs at the bottom of a well see what true strength is." He made a provocative gesture at Zi Qin. Spicer and the others did not think highly of him because of his arrogance. They quietly stepped back and put some distance between them. That way, when Zi Qin killed Andrew, they would be able to escape in time. "Buzz, Zi Chen did not hold back in the face of provocation. The massacre spirit flew out like a bolt of lightning and went straight for his opponent. Under the influence of his soul power, the massacre spirit was not only faster, but also more powerful. Even though he was only a 5 forces state cultivator, he could still kill a 6 forces state cultivator. Be careful. Seeing this, Spicer reminded him. Andrew's expression did not change much. He only extended his palm and then retracted 3 fingers. He only used 2 fingers to fight. Pa! In the next moment, something strange happened. The slaughtering spirit was caught between Andrew's 2 fingers, unable to move an inch further. This scene seemed to have frozen time and space, causing everyone's expressions to freeze. This included Zi Chen. His spirit of slaughter was caught between 2 fingers of the other party? How is this possible? Kant, who had already retreated, was also shocked as he looked ahead in shock. How powerful was Zi Chen's move? How could it be blocked so easily? Spicer and the rest, who had quietly retreated earlier, also looked in front of them in disbelief. Just this? Andrew sneered. The light in his hand flickered, and the massacre spirit shot off into the distance. It sank into a large tree. Buzz! In the next moment, the massacre spirit trembled again and flew back to Zi Chen's side. Zi Chen's eyes were cold as he used all of his strength. Clearly, he did not believe that he would lose. Soul power swirled around, and the slaughter spirit's speed became even faster, its killing intent boundless. Pa! But in the next moment, it was once again caught between Andrew's 2 fingers. Die! Zi Chen's figure flashed and appeared in front of Andrew. He raised the bone rod in his hand and used his energy to quickly smash it towards Andrew's head. A frog at the bottom of a well. Andrew's expression was still disdainful. He reached out with his other hand and grabbed the bone rod firmly. No matter how hard Zi Chen tried, the bone rod could not break free from his opponent's hand. The energy contained in the rod was also suppressed by a strange force. Now you know what you're worth, right? Andrew lifted his leg and kicked out. Zi Chen's body flew backwards. He did not have the strength to fight back at all. Everyone was stunned. How could this be? Zi Chen flew several feet away, and the 2 weapons were in Andrew's hands. Many people wanted to get their hands on these 2 weapons. The reason why Zi Chen was killed was also related to these 2 items. But after so many people's schemes, they did not manage to get these 2 weapons. Who would have thought that they would be caught by Andrew so easily today? Spicer's eyes flashed. Could this be the method of the people in the depths? Zi Chen staggered to his feet. His eyes were also filled with shock. The gap between the 2 of them was too big. It was almost unbelievable. Either you follow me, or you die. Andrew looked at Zi Chen and said indifferently. Zi Chen's figure flashed and rushed forward again. His opponent was only in the 6 forces state. It was impossible for him to be so powerful. There must be something wrong. He threw out a punch and went straight for Andrew. Golden light flashed, and there were crisscrossing lights. This was the attack that Zi Chen had learned. Swoosh! Andrew's hand shook, and the spirit of massacre went straight for Zi Chen. But when it got close to Zi Chen, it went around him. Then the spirit of massacre circled around Zi Chen and continued to move forward to kill Andrew. At the same time, Andrew held the bone rod in his hand and smashed it towards Zi Chen. Bam! The powerful vibration destroyed Zi Chen's attack and caused his body to slide backward. The bone rod in Andrew's hand did not unleash its full power. Zi Chen was only pushed back and was not hurt. In front of him, the spirit of massacre's 3rd attack was blocked. Again, Zi Chen rushed forward again. He seemed to have found the problem. During this time, the spirit of massacre kept trembling and the light of power flickered on its surface. Andrew held the spirit of massacre between his fingers so that it could not break free. Every time the spirit of massacre surged, it would disappear automatically. Then, the bone rod in Andrew's other hand smashed down again. This time, Zi-chan did not choose to fight head-on. Instead, he reached out and grabbed the bone rod. Then he kept urging the energy to gather towards the bone rod, trying to activate the true power of the bone rod. After all, the bone rod was his weapon. It was stronger in his hands. The bone rod tried to activate the power again and again, but the power disappeared like a clay ox entering the sea. Both sides were in a deadlock. It seemed that no one could do anything to the other. The others were confused. They did not know why it was like this. But in the next moment, Zi-chan moved. He clenched his other hand into a fist and punched towards Andrew's face. During this time, his body twisted and avoided the other party's kick. Bam! The punch hit the other party's cheek. The powerful force sent Andrew flying. The bone rod and the spirit of massacre returned to Zi-chan's hand. Everyone's expression changed again. How did it turn around? Zi-chan looked at Andrew indifferently. The shock in his eyes had disappeared. Andrew stood up. He was not injured. Zi-chan's attack was nothing to him. You saw through it? Andrew suddenly asked. Zi-chan said, You can devour my energy. Yes, the reason why the other party was strong was not because of his combat power, but because he directly absorbed Zi-chan's attack power. For example, when the spirit of massacre came into contact with the other party's palm, the sole power attack on it was absorbed. The remaining power of the spirit of massacre was naturally unable to resist Andrew. The bone rod's attack was the same. The energy was absorbed by the other party's palm. When it landed, only the bone rod's power was left. Without the support of Zi-chan's energy attack, both the spirit of massacre and the bone rod's power was limited. But Zi-chan also noticed that when the other party absorbed his energy attack, he could no longer fight back. This was why his punch could hit the other party. Even if I stand here without moving, you can't hurt me at all. Come back with me, Andrew said coldly. Otherwise, I will hold you back and the others can chop off your head at any time. At this moment, the advantage of having more people was revealed. He only needed one person, not to mention that he had brought 4-6 power state cultivators. Zi-chan did not reply. He turned and left. Chapter 5099. Zi-chan turned around and entered the mountain range, which stunned the others. After all, on the surface, he did not lose, and his combat power was not weaker than Andrew's. But he retreated decisively. Andrew's lips curled into a cold smile. Let's go. The sky was already bright, and he followed behind Zi-chan. Spicer and the other 3 could only follow after seeing this. Before leaving, Spicer glanced at Kant, using his cold eyes to warn him not to follow. Zi-chan might go straight into the depths, and that was not a place where Kant, who was in the 5-force estate, could stay. Kant stared at Zi-chan's back until he disappeared. Then he let out a sigh. He turned around and left. Today's incident was strange in every way. How could the powerful Zi-chan not be able to defeat a 6-force estate? Could it be that there was a secret in the depths that they, the Spellbreakers, did not know? Unfortunately, no matter what the secret was, it was not something that Kant could explore. He, who was in the 5-force estate, could not even protect himself. Taking one last look into the distance, Kant said in his heart, "Stay alive," and went back. Zi-chan went deeper into the depths, and the few people behind him chased after him. "It's useless. The world is big. You can't escape from me." Andrew's voice came from behind them. Zi-chan tapped his foot, stepping on big rocks one after another. His movements were very agile, like a monkey going deep into the depths. Andrew's lips were curled into a disdainful smile. Spicer quietly looked at Andrew. While he was shocked, he was also filled with suspicion. How could he ignore Zi-chan's attack? He thought for a while. Then he mustered up his courage and asked, "Sir, was your previous technique comprehended from the rules?" The other 3 were also curious. After all, as Spellbreakers, they knew almost everything in Pofa City. but they had never heard of such a technique. Rules? No, it's just an ability. Andrew glanced at Spicer and the other three. If you have the chance to enter the depths, you will have the same ability if you are lucky. Spicer and the others were surprised and happy. If they really had such a technique, they would be crushed if they encountered Zichen. Swoosh! There was a spell breaker beast in front, and it charged towards Zichen quickly. Zichen tapped his foot, and his figure quickly dodged. When he avoided the attack of the spell breaker beast, he pushed his palm. The spellbreaker beast went straight behind. It rolled and landed on the ground, stirring up countless sand and stones. When it got up, it happened to see Andrew and the other four. Without the slightest hesitation, he charged forward. Andrew sneered and punched forward. Bang! Andrew's body slid backward, while the Six Forces State Lawbreaker beast rolled and fell to the ground. It was still not injured and once again attacked the group. When Spicer and the others saw this, they shouted and attacked. The unique soul power attack of a spellbreaker fell on the spellbreaker beast. Under the joint attack of the four, the spellbreaker beast was quickly injured and ran away. Zichen happened to be standing on a high ground at this moment, and he turned back to see the scene. This made him even more puzzled. It seemed that the other party only had the means to resist his power. Otherwise, why didn't he block the spellbreaker beast directly? The doubts in his heart flashed, and he continued to go deeper. However, this test also let him know Andrew's weakness. Next, it wouldn't be very difficult to get rid of Andrew. The spellbreaker beast ran away, and Andrew walked over from behind. Continue to follow it. Sir, can't you ignore the spellbreaker beast's attack? Spicer asked curiously. What's the point of that? Andrew smiled proudly. If you want to ignore it, you have to ignore the strongest shadow destroyer. Spicer and the others nodded. It seemed to be the case. Both sides had only fought a few times, and Zichen was scared away. If it were not for Andrew today, they would probably have been killed by Zichen. Sir, Zichen is a shadow destroyer. What's the matter with him? In the forest, seeing that Andrew was in a good mood, Spicer asked the question in his heart. He's just a guy who luckily awakened soul power, just lucky. Andrew said disdainfully, and he'll stop at the 5 strengths realm for the rest of his life. He really can't break through? Spicer said, I have some understanding of him. He hasn't been here for long, but his speed of breaking through is really not slow. His combat strength is also outstanding among those of the same level. No matter how fast he broke through, once he becomes a shadow destroyer, it's impossible for him to break through again. Andrew said confidently, It's not that I look down on him, but no matter how many martial crystal sources he refines, even if he finds a rare spellbreaker beast core, he can forget about breaking through. Andrew pointed to the sky, because the rules don't allow it. In this world, the rules are greater than everything. Looking at the few people who were still confused, Andrew said, You don't know the reason because it involves some secrets that are only circulated internally. But sir, he's clearly an outsider. How did he become a shadow destroyer? There are always some fish that slip through the net. Perhaps they encountered some opportunity. This is not surprising. However, after his identity changed, he was destined to walk a dead end. The 5 of them followed behind. When they encountered spellbreaker beasts, Andrew did not make a move. The 4 of them dealt with them. They finally understood why such a powerful sir would bring the 4 of them along. It turned out that he had long expected Zichen to run to this mountain range. Arriving at a high ground, Andrew looked at the figure jumping in the forest and shouted, Stop running. Come back with me, and you can still live. If you continue running like this, you'll eventually encounter a powerful spellbreaker beast. At that time, only death will await you. Zichen turned back and crooked his finger at Andrew, making a provocative gesture. Andrew's expression was a little ugly. He looked into the depths of the forest. Running like this was not the way to go. It did not matter if that guy died, but if he caused them to lose their lives as well, the gains would not make up for the losses. Let's go back. Andrew did not intend to give chase. After all, this mission had been completed. He had obtained what he needed. In the distance, Zichen realized that Andrew had stopped chasing and did not go deeper. However, he did not immediately go to the periphery. Instead, he continued to stay here just in case. Andrew retraced his steps and came to the place where he had fought Zichen. He said, "Keep an eye out. If he runs out, report immediately. Remember, don't kill him. After all, if he dies now, his corpse will disappear. We have great use for him." A Six Forces realm cultivator who had been arranged to stay behind hurriedly nodded. He had previously been worried that Zichen would find him and kill him with a stick when he came out. Now, there was no need to be afraid. As long as he saw him from afar, he would turn and run. Zichen, who was still in the forest, was ambushed by a spell-breaker beast. This time he did not hold back. With the bone staff and the massacre spirit, he easily finished the battle. Just as the spell-breaker beast was about to die, a ball of light suddenly flew out from its body. This ball of light was unusually bright. This was a ball of light. Chapter 50-100. The ball of light floated in front of him, causing his eyes to light up. Zichen was shocked at first. Then he quickly scanned his surroundings. After confirming that there was nothing unusual, he reached out and grabbed the inner core. He felt a rich and violent power, and the inner core in his hand was trembling slightly. So it was this. Zichen suddenly understood. He had once heard Kongda mention that if one was lucky enough, they would be able to obtain the inner core of the law-breaking beast after killing it. However, the probability was too low. The inner core was extremely valuable, far more valuable than the source of martial crystals. It was said that after refining it, a 5-strength realm cultivator had a 90% chance of breaking through. Now, Zichen was only one step away from the 6-strength realm. This inner core might be able to help him break through. He looked at the sky and decided to find a place first. There were mountains and rocks everywhere, and there was no place to hide. Zichen began to go deeper. He was not so arrogant that he dared to stay in the open at night. After an hour, Zichen found a cave. After confirming that there had been no signs of habitation for a long time, he walked in and blocked the entrance. Then he began to refine the inner core. At night, the forest was filled with beast roars, and more law-breaking beasts began to appear. Zichen stayed in the cave, and the energy of the inner core continuously entered his body and was then absorbed by his heart. During this time, there was no feedback. Zichen was not in a hurry. He slowly refined the inner core and waited. After the sky darkened, the 6-strength realm lawbreaker who was guarding outside felt a trace of fear in his heart. Not only was he afraid of law-breaking beasts running out, but he was also worried that Zichen would suddenly appear and kill him. So he extinguished the bonfire. However, he still felt unsafe, so he retreated into the distance, away from the forest in front of him. After another 2 hours, listening to the roars of the beasts, the uneasiness in his heart grew stronger. Then he gritted his teeth and went back. Compared to the mission, his life was obviously more important. The night was silent. In the cave, the inner core in Zichen's hand had consumed about 1/3 of its energy. However, his heart was still absorbing without feedback. Could it be that he had to wait until it was completely refined? Zichen had such a guess in his heart. The 6 Forces state cultivator came again during the day and stood outside the forest again. When the sky turned dark, he decisively went back. After repeating this process for 3 days, he still hadn't seen Zichen. He concluded that Zichen was dead. Thus, he returned with peace of mind. As for Andrew, he had left 2 days ago. Buzz. Zichen's Naiden finally ran out of energy after 3 days. All the energy was absorbed by the heart, but there was no feedback. Zichen stood up and stretched his back, warming up his muscles and bones. Looking through the crack in the rock, The sky outside was very bright. First, he went out for a walk and found a place to roast a piece of meat to eat. Then he returned to refine the Martial crystal source. Even after refining all the Martial crystal sources, he still failed to have a breakthrough. Zichen had no choice but to continue trying. A few days later, he obtained another Niden, but there was still no effect after refining it. Ordinary people only needed one Niden, but he had already refined 2 Nadens and many Martial crystal sources. Finally, after refining the 3rd inner core, Zichen began to have doubts about his own abilities. Could it be that he really couldn't pass this final step? He tried to comprehend the rules, but he found that it was useless. The rules of heaven and earth seemed to be isolating him from the outside world, causing him to be unable to sense them at all. Walking out of the cave, Zichen walked aimlessly in the forest. After so long, no one caught up to him. Obviously, they wouldn't come again. As long as he didn't go out, Zichen would live a good life here. The prerequisite was that he didn't die here. In Pofa City, Zichen's sudden rise to fame caused people to talk about him for a long time. However, he soon disappeared, and there was no news about him. Gradually, everyone lost interest in talking about him and stopped paying attention to him. In the end, he seemed to have been forgotten. Only Butterball and Kant would often think of him. He was a flash in the pan, but he was very dazzling. Unfortunately, he disappeared in the end. Phoebe and the others would also talk about him. Every time, they would laugh heartily and say that he deserved to die. Marcus would also often think of Zichen, but he never dared to mention him to others. It was as if this name had become some kind of taboo. After Andrew went back, he came back again. He came to ask if Zichen had been caught. After learning that Zichen had not come out, Andrew asked people to keep an eye on Zichen. After that, he went back again. It seemed that even he didn't think highly of Zichen and thought that he had died long ago. Zichen stayed in the depths for a long time, aimlessly every day. At first, he would find a cave to hide in when the sky turned dark, but later, he gradually got used to it. As long as there was a big tree, he dared to rest on it. Moreover, he had walked all the way until now, and he didn't know where he was. On this day, Zichen had just killed a law-breaking beast when an inner core appeared in front of him. He calmly put away the inner core. He had been in the depths for a long time and had refined as many as 5 inner cores, but they were still useless for cultivation. Therefore, Zichen put away the rest of the inner cores. As for the corpses of the law-breaking beasts, Zichen also put them away. Suddenly, Zichen's expression changed slightly. He saw a figure in front of him. At this moment, it was broad daylight, and that figure actually appeared. A vanishing shadow beast. He had never seen a vanishing shadow beast in the depths. Since the figure had appeared, then where was the real body of the vanishing shadow beast? Should Zichen try to find it? Zichen didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the vanishing shadow beast seemed to be smiling at him. He frowned slightly. His figure flashed, and he stood on a high ground. He looked around. There were no other exotic beasts nearby. The figure still stood there, silently. It was said that when the vanishing shadow beast attacked, its real body would hide in the dark, and the figure in front of him was an illusion. He still didn't find it. Squeak, 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 squeak. The figure in front of him seemed to be speaking, but he didn't know what it was saying. However, Zichen could sense that the other party didn't have any ill intentions. Then he turned and left. After walking for a while, he turned back to look at Zichen. Zichen looked at him and didn't move. The other party looked at Zichen and didn't move either. Zichen hesitated and walked forward. The other party turned and continued forward. After walking for a few feet, he turned back to look at Zichen and found that Zichen had stopped. He also stopped. Zichen continued forward. The other party also continued forward. Every few feet, the other party would stop and look at Zichen. When he found that Zichen was following behind, he didn't stop. The other party was deliberately leading the way for him. Zichen's brows furrowed slightly. Was he planning to lure him to a certain place and then kill him? But he still followed behind. After walking like this for a few hours, the sky was about to turn dark. Once it turned dark, it would be the vanishing shadow beast's world. Zi-chun frowned again, hesitating whether to continue following. The vanishing shadow beast found that Zi-chen wasn't walking anymore. It started to babble, but unfortunately, no one could understand it. Then he waved at Zi-chen. Zi-chen understood what he was doing and asked him to follow him. Was he going to die? Chapter 50-101. The vanishing shadow beast babbled and said something that Zi-chen could not understand. Then it waved at him. Zi-chen understood, but he hesitated. The sky was about to darken. That was the time when the vanishing shadow beast would appear. Although he did not sense the other party's malice, it did not mean that it did not have any. But after some hesitation, Zi-chen still decided to go and take a look. After all, the vanishing shadow beasts he met before only knew how to devour souls. This one was different. If there was danger, it would not be too late to run. Even in the dark, he had a special eye technique and could see clearly. Seeing that Zi-chan had caught up, the vanishing shadow beast continued to move forward. But just like before, it turned back and looked at Zi-chen. After another 7 or 8 turns, the vanishing shadow beast suddenly disappeared. This made Zi-chen's expression change slightly. Just then, the other party appeared again, but only its head was exposed. It was smiling at him. It turned out to be a space barrier. Zi-chen had never seen a space barrier before. Now that he saw one for the first time, he was curious. Could it be that there are more vanishing shadow beasts living here? He followed in, but he was very careful. After meeting Andrew and realizing that the other party could restrain him, he was much more careful. After entering the ripples, Zi-chen seemed to have come to a paradise. There were green mountains and clear waters, and spiritual flowers and herbs were everywhere. The sky outside was already dark, but here it was bright. Everywhere he passed, there was a burst of floral fragrance. Zi-chan was very surprised. There was actually such a strange place in the depths of the mountains. If it had not led the way, he would not have found it. But why did the vanishing shadow beast bring him here? At this moment, the vanishing shadow beast was still walking in front, but it deliberately slowed down. Zi-chen looked around curiously until he saw a mountain. The mountain was black and extremely tall. It looked like the treasure left behind by Gushan. As he got closer, Zi-chan felt a strong soul power aura. It seemed to be triggering his soul power. Just as Zi-chan was puzzled, some figures appeared from the mountain. They were all vanishing shadow beasts. They had arrived at the nest of the vanishing shadow beast. When they saw Zi-chen, there was only curiosity in their eyes, but no malice. Squeak, squeak, squeak. No one knew what they were saying. The one that led Zi-chen in seemed to be explaining to everyone. Occasionally, it would look at Zi-chen and smile. Zi-chen couldn't see his smile, but he could sense it. Of course, he wasn't sure if his feeling was right. Zi-chen stood there and looked at the vanquishing shadow beasts. He did not feel threatened, so he did not act rashly. Soon, more people walked out of the Black Mountain. One of them was an elder. Compared to the illusory shadow vanishing beasts, he looked more like a human. However, after he began to walk, his body began to change. Like a shadow, he could disappear at any moment. "Young man." The old man suddenly spoke. His clear soul power undulations caused Zi-chen to jump in fright. "Who are you?" Zi-chen looked at the old man. "We are all vanishing shadow beasts." The old man's answer caused Zi-chen's expression to change again. He looked at those people carefully. They were almost exactly the same as the vanishing shadow beasts that devoured souls he saw in the outside world. Zi-chen asked, "Aren't you vanishing shadow beasts?" The difference of one word was like heaven and earth. For example, lawbreaker beasts and lawbreakers. The former was an animal, while the latter was a human, and they were people of high status. Vanishing shadow beasts The old man smiled bitterly. That's right. That's our name now. Suppressing the curiosity in his heart, Zichen asked again, You guys led me here. Is there a reason? The old man waved his hand and said, Come and sit. He had been standing on the Black Mountain. Even the other vanishing shadow beasts were standing there. The one that led him here also walked up. Zichen walked forward. Although it was just a simple conversation, he could sense that these beings did not have any ill intentions towards him. Under the curious gaze of the vanishing shadow beasts, Zichen walked up the Black Mountain. His soul force surged within his sea of consciousness, causing even the black stone to tremble slightly. Then Zichen felt a special energy emerge from the Black Mountain. This energy entered his body. He did not reject this feeling. Instead, he felt very warm. What is this? Zichen asked curiously. This is the treasure of the vanishing shadow clan, the Soul Mountain. It's because of its existence that our remnant souls can survive. The old man looked at Zichen and sighed. But even with the help of the Soul Mountain, their minds are still incomplete. They can't speak and live like wandering ghosts. Fortunately, Xiao Wei saw you. The heavens have not forsaken the vanishing shadow clan. Hearing the old man's sigh, Zichen hurriedly explained, Elder, you misunderstood. I'm not from the vanishing shadow clan. I'm from the spirit clan. I just accidentally obtained soul power and was mistaken for a vanishing shadow. The old man looked at Zichen and smiled. It doesn't matter if you're from the spirit clan or the vanishing shadow clan. Since you're here, it proves that we're fated. Seeing that the old man did not care about his identity, Zichen did not care either. The old man looked at Zichen and continued, Do you feel that your realm has stagnated after obtaining soul power? Zichen immediately nodded. During this time, he had refined many nadins and martial crystal sources, but his realm had not improved at all. Even the heart and the black stone in his mind could not help him. The old man explained, This is because the vanishing shadow's laws are chaotic and no longer complete. Without complete laws, you can't break through. Zichen was surprised. The world's laws can become incomplete. They used to be complete, but they were destroyed by the spellbreakers, so the laws are no longer complete. Zichen did not understand, so the old man patiently explained. It turned out that a long time ago, this world was controlled by the vanishing shadow. They were the absolute rulers, until one day, a spirit caster came here through the Milky Way. At that time, there was a problem with the world's laws. Then, heaven and earth shook and the laws changed. A portion of the spellbreaker beasts suddenly evolved and became spellbreakers. After those spellbreakers turned into human form, they obtained soul power. But compared to the vanishing shadow, the spellbreakers and spirit casters only had a single power, so the vanishing shadow's dominance was not shaken. But as time passed, the world's laws were no longer stable. Finally, one day, those spellbreakers suddenly killed the shadow vanishing shadow. With lightning speed, they killed all the shadow vanishing shadow. The souls of the dead shadow vanishing shadow did not dissipate. In the end, they became remnant souls and wandered the world. Hearing the old man's words, Zichen was completely stunned. Those spellbreakers were actually evolved from spellbreaker beasts, and those they called vanishing shadow beasts were actually the remnant souls of the dead shadow vanishing shadow. Chapter 5102. Hearing the Truth. Zichen's face was filled with shock. The shadow vanquishers he saw were all humans. Without any preconceived notions, Zichen looked at these figures again and found that they were all normal people. Some of the short ones were just children. At this moment, everyone was looking at him with obvious curiosity. No wonder Zichen didn't sense any threat earlier. They didn't know how to attack at all. Hearing the old man's explanation, Zichen understood that the figure outside Shattering Lost City was only a remnant soul. It had long lost its mind and followed its instincts. Some could live a little longer after absorbing soul power. Some couldn't absorb soul power and would disappear with the passage of time. As for these people, they didn't need to absorb soul power because of the existence of the soul mountain. They didn't need to worry about death, but it was extremely difficult for them to recover their intelligence and memories like the old man. Why did the Shadow Vanquisher lose? Ziqin asked, puzzled. Aren't they the strongest? The spell breaker somehow cut off a part of the rules and used it to refine something. It has a suppressive effect on the Shadow Vanquisher. Hearing the old man's explanation, Ziqin thought of Andrew. In the last battle, the other party had completely suppressed him. All his attacks were ineffective against Andrew, but a spell-breaker beast in the forest could defeat him. Ziqin didn't understand the reason before, but now Ziqin understood. Then Ziqin looked at these figures and found that they weren't so scary anymore. Instead, they were much friendlier, because they were the same kind of people. Suddenly, Ziqin remembered something. Last time, the spell breaker attacked me, but he didn't seem to want to kill me. They need your power, the old man said. Ziqin didn't understand. The spell breaker is very ambitious. They've been studying the rules and power of the Shadow Vanquishers and then creating new Shadow Vanquishers, the old man said. The old man said, they call this kind of existence Shadow Breaker. This time, Ziqin was shocked again. The Spellbreaker's methods were really endless. Not only did he mess up the rules of the world and destroy the Shadow Vanquisher race, but now he wanted to create a new race. He could imagine that even if Andrew didn't kill him, as long as he captured him, what followed would be endless research. In fact, it even went from stripping away one's strength to stripping away one's soul and body. Just thinking about it made him feel good. Ziqin's body fell back, and he looked up at the blue sky. It seems that we will be living together from now on. Since the rules were not complete, there was no possibility of a breakthrough, which was why Ziqin had not broken through yet. Whether it was the heart or the black stone, they could only provide him with energy, but they could not help him repair the laws. Therefore, he could only accept his fate. At this moment, Ziqin suddenly missed his hometown and his friends. He wondered if they were doing well. Hugh didn't go back on his word, did he? As for him, he was completely unable to return. The world had changed, and the rules had been broken. It was obviously impossible for him to repair it with his current strength of the 5-strength state. Unknowingly, Ziqin had fallen asleep. The old man looked at the sleeping Ziqin and waved his hand, indicating that everyone could disperse. The other shadow destroyers scattered in all directions. Some entered the Black Mountain Peak, but some stayed behind. Many of them sat or sprawled in front of Ziqin, looking at him curiously. Ziqin slept very soundly. He even had a dream and saw his friends. When he opened his eyes and saw the big and small heads, he was shocked. Then he sat up. His thoughts returned. Ziqin knew what had happened and sighed softly. Babbling sounds could be heard. These shadow destroyers, who were obviously children, were saying something to him. Ziqin could not understand and could only smile at them. There was still a warm energy entering his body from the Black Mountain Peak, but it did not change anything. Soon, Ziqin discovered a problem. Because everyone's bodies were illusory, they did not need to refine energy. They just needed to stay on the Black Mountain Peak. However, Ziqin could not. His energy would be depleted, even if he stayed in this place. Although he still had a lot of energy, it would be used up one day. It seemed that he could not stay here for long. So, after staying here for a while, Ziqin decided to leave. If those spell breakers found their way here, it would be a complete disaster for all the shadow destroyers present. He looked at the Black Mountain Peak. If even this thing was destroyed, then the Shadow Destroyer clan would disappear completely. When that happened, he would be a sinner. So he told the old man his intention. The old man said, "No hurry. Wait a while." Ziqin did not understand. The old man pointed at the Black Mountain Peak and said, Every once in a while, the Gate of Souls will open. I hope you can go in and take a look." Then the old man told him that the reason he could speak was that he had entered the Gate of Souls and obtained a black dot of light. Since then, he had awakened his memory. But after that, many shadow destroyers went in, but found nothing. So he wanted Zichen to give it a try. Zichen nodded in agreement. He really wanted to go and take a look at such a strange place. Whether it was the old man or Zichen, both of them had a kind of anticipation, or rather anticipation in their hearts, but they did not say it out loud. Since coming here, he had spent most of his time on the Black Mountain Peak. During this time, soul power continuously entered his sea of consciousness. Although it could not help him break through, it could increase his soul power. The benefits were not small. The shadow destroyer called Xiaowei often came to Zichen. Through chatting with the old man, he learned that although Xiaowei had not awakened her memory, she had already awakened her intelligence. She sat beside Zichen for a long time. Knowing that Zichen could not understand her, she did not speak much. When Xiaowei was around, the other shadow destroyers did not come over. In fact, Zichen could not tell the other shadow destroyers apart from Xiaowei and the old man. They all seemed to look the same. Zichen, the Gate of Souls has opened. Finally, Zichen heard the old man's long-awaited voice. He immediately stood up and looked at him. The old man was also very excited. "The Gate of Souls has opened. Come with me." Zichen followed the old man into the cave. The cave was very big. Several people could stand side by side. Soon, Zichen discovered that the other shadow destroyers had also arrived, but no one came forward. They all followed behind him. Only he and the old man walked side by side. As they went deeper, Zichen felt that the soul power around him was getting thicker. Finally, they came to the inner core of the Black Mountain Peak. He saw the Gate of Souls. It was a door suspended in the air. It kept rotating, surging with rich soul power and emitting a bright soul light. "Go." The old man's voice was clearly very excited. Zichen turned back and looked behind him. All the shadow destroyers were standing there, looking at him. Chapter 5103. All the shadow destroyers looked at Zichen. At this moment, Zichen seemed to understand their emotions. There was anticipation and hope. As the last shadow destroyer in this world, they all hoped that Zichen would gain something after entering. After all, this was the Mountain of Souls, the last treasure of the Shadow Destroyer clan. It was also because of its existence that they were protected. They hoped that Zichen could bring about a miracle. "Go." The old man's voice was also a little emotional. Zichen turned and entered the Gate of Souls. At this moment, all the shadow destroyers made a uniform movement, as if praying for Zichen. After entering the Gate of Souls, Zichen saw nothing. This place was completely empty. There was nothing here. This made him stunned, and he recalled what the old man had said. Other than himself, no one else had discovered anything after coming here. Could it be that he would also gain nothing? At this moment, Zichen saw a ray of light. A straight ray of light flashed past his eyes. Zichen wanted to reach out and grab it, but the light seemed to be in a different space and time. It passed through Zichen's palm. Zichen was unwilling to give up. His figure flashed, trying to catch up with the light. Swoosh! The light flashed and disappeared. Just as Zichen was feeling a little depressed, another light appeared in front of him. This time, 2 streaks of light streaked across Zichen's face. Zichen stared at the 2 rays of light carefully. His entire consciousness seemed to sink into them. Then he seemed to see everything in the world from the 2 rays of light. The 2 rays of light disappeared, and 3 more appeared in his vision. Then one after another, they kept stacking up. Finally, 49 rays of light appeared. After these rays of light, Zichen's eyes were bright. He saw more rays of light of the rules. At this moment, he seemed to see the essence of this world. Countless rays of light intertwined, forming an invisible net. Then the net expanded, outlining a world. These lights were all laws. Just as Zi-Chen was in a daze and did not understand the meaning behind it, he suddenly saw the net dissipate between heaven and earth. Then more laws appeared. These laws were very special. They intertwined and entangled with each other. From the initial incompleteness, he began to piece it together until it was finally perfect. In the end, all the rules intertwined together to form a ball of light. This ball of light represented the rules, and it was a complete set of rules. It seemed to have come from another time and space, breaking through countless spaces and crossing the barriers of time and space to arrive in front of Zi-Chen. Before Zi-Chen could reach out, the ball of light entered Zi-Chen's body. In the next moment, the sphere of light spread out, forming a complete set of laws within Zi-Chen's body. It was as if a complete small world had unfolded from Zi-Chen's body. This made him realize something. Previously, he had seen the rules of the great world. Now he was looking at the rules of the small world of the human body. At the moment when the rules were complete, Zi-Chen's heart beat violently. Then there was a surge of energy that flowed through his heart to all parts of his body. The path that had previously blocked Zi-Chen's advancement seemed to have been patched up after the small world's rules filled in. Once again, it became unobstructed. In front of Zi-Chen's eyes, there was a bright light. He saw countless rules flowing. At the same time, his body was also transforming towards reality. At this point, he had advanced from the fifth to the sixth. Zi-Chen, who was at the sixth force state, truly felt the existence of his physical body. The blood in his body flowed like a river. His heart beat like a drum, thumping. All of this was real. Zi-Chen became very excited, because the completion of the rules meant that he had the possibility of advancing again and also the possibility of going home. Although this path might not be smooth, and he would need to cut through thorns and thorns. Moreover, looking at this space, he knew very well what he would face after accepting the complete rules. But that was not important. What was important was that he had broken through. In the future, he was destined to move forward. Countless rules flashed in front of his eyes. Among them, the destruction rule was even clearer and more obvious. This was Zi-Chen's attack technique. After a long time, the surrounding light faded. Zi-Chen's heart returned to its normal beating speed. Although there was still a steady flow of energy, it was no longer as surging as before. Around his body, the light of the sixth force was very obvious. In his sea of consciousness, there was a lot more soul power that could be mobilized. At this moment, he felt very good and powerful. He took a deep breath and carefully sensed his current body and strength. After a while, when Zi-Chen came back to his senses, the front had become pitch black. Behind him, the light door had opened. Zi-Chen looked at the void, bowed, and cupped his fists. "Thank you for your help. From now on, I will advance and retreat together with the Annihilation Shadow Clan, sharing honor and disgrace." After saying that, Zi-Chen turned around and entered the light door. In the pitch-black space, the last bit of light disappeared. The Gate of Souls closed again. Zi-Chen walked out of the Gate of Souls and saw that the Shadow Destroyers were still standing there. Their actions were the same. This seemed to be an ancient prayer meeting, sacred and solemn. The elder was the first to notice Zi-Chen. He immediately asked, "How is it?" But as soon as he said that, he became extremely nervous and perturbed, because Zi-Chen carried the hope of their clan. The other Shadow Destroyers all looked up. Although they had not gained intelligence, they understood that this concerned the fate of their clan. Light flowed around Zi-Chen's body. A total of 6 force of light surrounded his body. This was the best response for everyone. As expected, the elder's body trembled, and then he immediately burst into tears. The other Shadow Destroyers also began to cheer. Yes, they were cheering. This time, Zi-Chen could hear their voices and even know their intentions. Looking at these shadow destroyers again, he could already distinguish the differences between each person, because he had become a member of the shadow destroyers. The excited elder came back to his senses and immediately kowtowed to the front. The other shadow destroyers followed suit. Zi-Chen had broken the rules and broken through again. This meant that he had taken a big step forward. And this big step was of great significance to the Shadow Destroyer clan. At this moment, even in this cave, they could already feel a steady flow of soul power entering their bodies. This time, it was not simply maintaining life. It seemed to have begun to stay in their bodies. When Zi-Chen was escorted out of the cave by the crowd, he found that the original Black Mountain Peak was only half its original size. A full half of it had disappeared into thin air. Zi-Chen knew that this was the price that the Soul Mountain had to pay for helping him fix the rules. This meant that he had received his reward. Next, it was time to complete his responsibility and mission. Chapter 5104. Zi-Chen did not leave immediately. This was the elder's idea. He told Zi-Chen that he could stay here. If he could improve his realm again, it would be great. And this Soul Mountain was the most precious treasure of the Shadow Destroyer clan. It was the same for Zi-Chen. Zi-Chen stayed here for 3 days and decided to leave. This was because the Soul Mountain's energy was rapidly depleting. A portion of it was absorbed by him. If this went on, he might really break through. A small portion was absorbed by the other Shadow Destroyers. If he continued to stay here, the Soul Mountain would definitely be absorbed by him. Without the help of the Soul Mountain, what would happen to these Shadow Destroyers? Zi-Chen did not dare to imagine. The elder also sensed this situation, so he did not urge Zi-Chen to stay. When they left, Xiaowei led the way again. She led Zi-Chen out of here, then turned here and there and walked a long way before reaching the mountain range. After that, Zi-Chen waved goodbye to Xiaowei. The girl, who was just a shadow, stood high up and kept waving, until Zi-Chen's figure completely disappeared. Returning to the forest again, Zi-Chen turned his head and glanced into the depths. His breakthrough this time was really due to luck. If he had not kept going deeper, if he had not met Xiaowei, he would have been in deep trouble. But it was also true that there was always a way out, and the world had its own destiny. A law-breaking beast was hiding in the dark, slowly approaching Zi-Chen. Its eyes were extremely cold. It moved silently until it was behind Zi-Chen. Zi-Chen seemed to be a little distracted and did not notice the abnormality behind him. The next moment, the law-breaking beast pounced. As the two sides approached, its eyes were full of brutality, as if it saw its prey being devoured. At this moment, a ray of light suddenly appeared. Like lightning, it quickly cut through the sky. Poof! Poof! There was only one ray of light, but 2 sounds came out one after the other because it was too fast. The first time, it pierced the law-breaking beast's heart. After drawing an arc in the air, the second time, it turned back and pierced its head. The huge body of the law-breaking beast crashed to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. The white mark left behind by the spirit of massacre lingered in the air for a long time. Zi-Chen turned around. This time he didn't see the inner core, but he also put away the corpse. He was about to leave, and if there were no accidents, he probably wouldn't return. Therefore, before he left, Zi-Chen wanted to collect more law-breaker beast corpses to exchange for cultivation resources. Originally, he had wanted to leave the remaining resources on him for the Shadow Destroyers, but he realized that they could not absorb any other energy other than the energy from the Soul Mountain. Buzz! The slaughter spirit turned into a stream of light and quickly pierced through the law-breaking beast's body. By the time Zi-Chen arrived, the law-breaking beast was already dead. He directly collected the corpses and did not need to deal with them. Then came the next one. Compared to when he had been at the 5 Force, the 6 Force Zi-Chen had truly become a powerful Shadow Destroyer. At the same time, he had also gained the most important ability, Soul Power Perception. Just like the divine consciousness in the outside world, He could sense the movement of the grass within a radius of 300 feet. Although it couldn't be compared to when he was in the Saint Spirit realm, it was already very good for Zichen. After making some small gains, Zichen turned back and returned. No matter what, he still had to exchange for energy. This was the foundation of cultivation. Kant once said that when he reached the sixth force, the amount of resources he needed would increase by another level. After returning, Zichen walked back to the law-breaking city. Along the way, many people saw him, but their expressions didn't change much. There were people going in and out of this place every day. However, soon, some people realized that this person looked very familiar, but they couldn't remember where they had seen him before. It was normal for one person to have such doubts, but now many people had the same feeling, which was not normal. Zichen was indifferent to everyone's strange looks. "He's Zichen." Suddenly, someone exclaimed as he recognized Zichen. This shout was like a stone that fell into a lake, causing thousands of ripples. In an instant, there were cries of surprise everywhere. Zichen, the person who became a shadow destroyer a year ago, caused a huge commotion at that time. However, not long after, he disappeared without a trace. During this time, there were many rumors about Zichen. Some said that he didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and offended a seven-force realm cultivator, which resulted in him being killed. Some said that he was summoned by a big shot, entered the depths, and didn't come out. However, the most credible one was that he died in the forest. Because he was too arrogant and had been alone, he was killed by the law-breaking beast. Because he hadn't broken through yet, his corpse was not found. Because of this rumor, many people went to the forest, wanting to find the treasures left behind by Zichen after his death. In short, there were many rumors, but there was no news about Zichen. At first, he would be a topic of conversation, but slowly he was forgotten. Until now, when he suddenly appeared, no one remembered him. Now that they saw Zichen again, they were very shocked. At the moment, Zichen didn't have the light of power flowing around him, which made people wonder if he had advanced to the sixth force realm. A lawbreaker at the sixth force realm was definitely a big shot in this place. Therefore, as Zichen passed by, he attracted a lot of attention. Zichen went directly to the Hall of Spiritual Spells. After entering, everyone looked at him. Obviously, they had heard the news. Zichen didn't stay on the first floor and went directly to the second floor. Without needing to be verified, he went up directly. There was an uproar below. Some people were exclaiming, "The sixth force realm." A very young woman stood at the stairs to welcome Zichen. After seeing him come up, she smiled and asked Zichen what he needed. This woman was at the four-force realm. "I want to exchange for resources," Zichen said simply. "What resources do you want to exchange? What are you going to exchange for?" The woman had a professional smile on her face. There weren't many people here. Everyone was provided one-on-one service. Zichen took out the corpse of the lawbreaker beast. The woman's smile immediately disappeared and she retreated. Because Zichen took out too many corpses, they quickly piled up at the door. Such a scene also caused the hearts of the other people on this floor to be filled with shock. The people who didn't care at first were now looking at Zichen. To be able to take out so many corpses of lawbreaker beasts, he was definitely not an ordinary person. "He's Zichen." Zichen, the shadow destroyer who disappeared. Isn't he dead? Immediately, this level began to tremble. Zichen did not care about the commotion. He walked straight ahead because time was limited. Compared to the first floor, the things here were much more comprehensive. From resources to weapons, it could be said that there was everything. There were even inner elixirs. Of course, the thing that people here exchanged the most was true spiritual power. This was the cultivation resource of the sixth force realm. A complete corpse could be exchanged for about 100 true spiritual power. Of course, if it was dissected and then sold, it could be exchanged for more. However, this was a test of the dissection technique. A bad cut could result in a discount. The woman at the Four-Force realm recovered from her shock. She immediately walked up to Zichen and asked, "What do you want to exchange for?" Her attitude was even more respectful. "True spiritual power. All of it," Zichen said decisively. "How much can I get back?" "You have 10 corpses of lawbreaker beasts here. The total is 1 in total." Chapter 5105. Zichen took out a total of 10 corpses of law-breaking beasts. Under normal circumstances, they could be exchanged for 1,000 daos of power. Yet, at that moment, there was actually someone who shouted out those words. Furthermore, the reason for that was because of benevolence. After returning, Zichen didn't think that everything would go smoothly. He didn't expect trouble to come as soon as he arrived. Moreover, this place was known as the fairest place. The expression of the woman who spoke earlier changed. Then, she retreated with an apologetic look. Zichen turned around and saw a man walking towards him. He glanced at the corpses on the ground. Then he pointed a finger at Zichen and said, "1 daos. These can only be exchanged for 1 daos of energy. Of course, it's because I'm kind. Otherwise, you won't even get one." The others kept quiet out of fear. They stood in the distance, including the guests in the Six-Force estate. This man had a high status. He was the manager of the Hall of Spiritual Spells. Everyone here had to listen to him. This manager might not have a high cultivation level, but his status was high. However, the crowd didn't understand why this manager was targeting Zichen. It was obvious that he was targeting him. "What did you say?" Zichen looked at him. "I said, at most, I'll give you 1 daos of energy." The man sneered. "And this is because I'm kind. Is this how the Hall of Spiritual Spells does business?" Zichen frowned. This was known as the fairest place. "This is my place. I can do business however I want." "It's none of your business." The man sneered and said, "If you think it's unfair, then get lost." Zichen suppressed the anger in his heart and was about to leave with the corpses of law-breaking beasts. "Leave the things and get lost." The man glanced at Zichen indifferently. Zichen's eyes were cold. "Are you going to rob me? So what if we snatch it?" The man said coldly, "Do you dare to make a move? Do you have the guts? If you break the rules, I'll let your corpse be exposed in the wilderness. In this Pofa city, rules must be obeyed." The man waved his hand at Zichen with a look of disgust. "Get lost. If you dare to come here again, I'll break your legs." Zichen laughed when he heard that. "If you want to die, just say it. I'm a very easygoing person. I'll definitely fulfill your wish." As Zichen spoke, he pressed down on the man's head. The other party didn't resist and said angrily, "You dare to break the rules of Pofa City? The rules here don't even apply to spellbreakers, let alone a shadow destroyer." At that moment, a voice came from the staircase. "Furthermore, it's the Hall of Spiritual Spells. You're trying to do evil to a shadow destroyer. You're simply courting death." Kant came up from downstairs. After hearing the news of Zichen's appearance, he immediately came over. Back then, the 2 martial crystal sources that Zichen had given him, in addition to some other resources, had allowed Kant to successfully break through and advance to the Six-Force stage. Although Zichen had been forgotten by this world, he had never forgotten. He also firmly believed that Zichen was still alive. This was because he had seen Zichen fight with his own eyes. If the strong cultivators in the depths didn't come out, it was almost impossible for the spell-breaker beasts in the forest to kill him. As expected, Zichen had returned. Since he could come here, it was obvious that he had broken through. Zichen glanced at Kant. "Is it okay to kill people here?" Kant said they were in the wrong first. Zichen nodded. He understood what Kant meant. "What? You still want to fight?" Unexpectedly, the manager wasn't afraid at all, even if a spell-breaker came. After breaking free from Zichen's grasp, he waved his hand and a few strangers appeared on the second floor. Their gazes were cold. They stood in different places and vaguely surrounded Zichen. Seeing this, the others dispersed again. It was obvious that a battle was about to happen. Among these people, there were 5 forces realm and 6 forces realm. One of them was a man with a sword in his hands. He leaned against a pillar and looked a little lazy. In another direction, a half-naked man with a heavy hammer on his shoulder was looking at Zichen from the corner of his eyes. These 2 were not only 6 forces realm, but also the best of the best. In addition, there was a 6 forces realm cultivator in each of the other 4 directions. Seeing this, Kant's face turned cold. The Hall of Spiritual Spells has guts. How dare you break the rules? The middle-aged man waved his hand and said, "This has nothing to do with you. If you don't want to die, hurry up and get down. Don't die here unjustly." Although he was very arrogant in front of Zichen, he still didn't dare to mess around with Kant, a spellbreaker. "Are you stupid? He's a shadow destroyer. How dare you attack a shadow destroyer?" Kant said angrily. He couldn't understand what these people were thinking. The steward smiled coldly. "Shadow destroyer. How impressive. I just don't know if his head will be separated from his body by my sword." The man with the sword smiled faintly. He looked at Zichen and clenched the sword in his hand. "My heavy hammer is also thirsty. I wonder if the blood of a shadow destroyer tastes good." The brawny man waved his heavy hammer and smiled evilly. Zichen smiled. "You can still smile like this. Looks like you." As soon as the man with the sword finished speaking, a ray of light flew towards him. Poof! His body, leaning against the pillar involuntarily, left the pillar and fell to the side. The long sword in his hand directly hit the ground. Then his body fell heavily, making a thud. No one had thought that Zichen would make a move, and it was so swift. The brawny man had just raised his heavy hammer when the ray of light pierced his forehead. His body fell forward due to inertia. The heavy hammer in his hand swung forward, making a huge noise. 2 of the steward's strongest subordinates had died in a single exchange. Buzz! The ray of light was trembling, and the massacre spirit flew away quickly. Poof! 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 Following that, the hostile existences fell one after another. Those in the 6-force realm still had intact corpses. As for those in the 5-force realm, they directly dissipated. At this level, the power of the massacre spirit had become stronger. Kant stood there. He was originally full of anger, but now there was only shock in his eyes. Not far away, the steward's eyes were wide open. Such killing power was simply too terrifying. However, he was clearly not afraid. He pointed at Zichen and reprimanded. "How dare you? How dare you, Buzz?" The slaughter spirit arrived and pierced through the enemy's head. It then drew an arc in the air and returned to Zichen's side before disappearing. There was no more hostility around. That was because those who were hostile were all dead. The people in the distance all stood there, not even daring to breathe. In an instant, many people in the 6-force realm were killed. That was too terrifying. Zichen glanced around, then walked straight to the counter. In front of everyone, he directly took away the 1,000 daos of true magic. That was what he had originally exchanged. Then, Zichen took away 9 more corpses of the law-breaking beasts, leaving 1 behind. He looked at the woman in the 4-force realm who was trembling in fear and said, "This is your reward for leading the way." After that, he went straight downstairs. Chapter 5106. If I can't write it, tomorrow will be even worse. Thunder Marshal has not been updated today. It is currently in your hands. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 5107. The reason why Zichen took away the corpse of the lawbreaker beast was because the Hall of Spiritual Spells had broken the rules. He deserved to have the loot. When he went downstairs, the others backed away. Although they did not see it with their own eyes, they knew what had happened. Zi-Chin left the Hall of Spiritual Spells directly. Kant followed him out. As a lawbreaker in the Six-Force estate, no one dared to stop him. He was also the only one who had broken through. "Where are you going?" Kant asked after he followed him out. "Outside the city." Zi-Chin turned around and threw out an item. It was a ring containing all his loot. "Help me exchange it." Kant caught the ring and asked, "Where can I find you?" "Where there is a battle." Zi-Chin left with large strides, heading straight out of the city. There would definitely be a battle, or more battles. The news of Zi-Chin appearing in the city and killing someone in the Hall of Spiritual Spells spread quickly. Zi-Chin, who had disappeared for a long time, appeared in front of everyone again, and this time he had broken through. This made many people who knew the inside story feel that it was unbelievable. The Shadow Destroyer was already a dead end. How could Zi-Chin break through? Zi-Chin walked out of the city and jumped onto a big rock. He lay there and waited quietly for new trouble to come. He did not expect to run into trouble in the Hall of Spiritual Spells, so he killed the person directly. As for what would happen next, he wanted to see. When Spicer and the others heard the news, they immediately walked out of the city together. When they arrived, many people had already gathered. Zi-Chin was lying on a big rock leisurely. The others stood far away, not daring to get close. "It's really him." When Phoebe saw Zi-Chin, he was shocked. It's been so long. How could he still be alive? Not only is he alive, but he also broke through. Spicer frowned. He had seen Zi-Chin escape into the forest with his own eyes, and Andrew had been suppressed in the battle with Zi-Chin. On the way back, Andrew clearly told him that it was impossible for Zi-Chin to break through because it involved the rules. But now, Zi-Chin had actually broken through. A group of 6 people walked out of the city and soared into the sky, heading straight in this direction. They were from the Hall of Spiritual Spells. As a force, the Hall of Spiritual Spells was rich and had recruited many experts. Zi-Chin had killed their people, which was a violation of the rules. They had come to collect their debts. A total of 6 people landed on the ground and surrounded Zi-Chin. Zi-Chin sat up, glanced at the 6 of them, and said, "You don't even have a 7th strength state cultivator. Are you looking down on me?" He yawned. Then his figure disappeared. Like a ghost, he appeared in front of a 6 realms cultivator. The 6 realms cultivator who came here knew how powerful Zi-Chin was, so he had been on guard. Just as Zi-Chin appeared in front of him, the cultivator shouted, and a dazzling light bloomed in front of him. The 6 realms cultivator's power contained the rules of attack. This was his rule, which was attached to the blade, and he slashed at Zi-Chin's head. This slash was full of power and momentum. Zi-Chin stretched out his hand and easily blocked the blade. He allowed the energy to wreak havoc, but it was unable to move forward. In the next moment, light flowed in Zi-Chin's palm. This was a crisscrossing attack which directly swept past the 6 realms cultivator's body. The light of energy on the cultivator's body immediately dimmed and extinguished, and then his body scattered. When the people in the distance saw this, their faces changed drastically. This was too terrifying, wasn't it? Without looking at the broken body on the ground, Zi-Chin's figure flashed again, and he appeared in front of the 2nd 6 realms cultivator. One punch, he was sent flying. Puff! While the cultivator's body was still in midair, the slaughter spirit pierced through his head. He fell to the ground and died. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 6 had died. Go to hell! A cultivator rushed forward quickly, the sword in his hand flowing with a fierce aura. He came from behind and stabbed at Zi-Chin's back. A ray of light flashed, and the bone stick blocked the attack behind him. When it came into contact with the sword, it shook off the weapon. The 6 realms cultivator who was holding the weapon changed his expression. The light of energy around him surged wildly, and he rushed forward again. He wanted to get close to Zi-Chin in one go. At this moment, a punch landed on his chest. Buzz! The rule appeared again, and like the sharpest weapon in the world, it swept past his body. This was a scene that no one could look at directly. Run! In the blink of an eye, 3 of them were dead. When the other 3 saw this, they all wanted to retreat, and they turned around and ran. Sure enough, it was too difficult to kill Zichen without being in the 7 realms. You want to run. Zichen glanced at the 3 of them. They were very smart, and they all ran in different directions. It was obvious that they wanted to pray for their own good. Zichen chased after them. When he used all his energy, he was much faster than them. A scream came from afar. Everyone knew that this was the 4th person to die. Then, 2 more screams came one after another. None of the 6 cultivators managed to escape alive. Zichen collected their belongings and casually threw their corpses to the side. Compared to the lawbreakers, it seemed that the lawbreakers were more willing to die. For example, they were afraid of the lawbreakers, but they were not afraid of him. Was it because there were more lawbreakers? He walked back, took the weapons and rings of the dead 6 realms cultivators and waved his hand. In the next moment, a ray of light swept across, and the mutilated corpses flew into the distance. He wanted to continue staying here, and those corpses were no doubt an eyesore. When Kant finished exchanging his items and came back, the battle had already ended. He looked at Zichen, who was lying there. After hesitating, he still walked forward, ignoring the warnings of his companions. If he approached Zichen in this situation, it would be obvious that he was related to him. When trouble came, he might be implicated. Kant returned the ring to Zichen and exchanged all the items inside for resources. Zichen took it and thanked him profusely. "What are you going to do next?" Kant asked. "I'll kill that guy last time, and then we'll see." This was what Zichen thought of when he was in trouble with the Hall of Spiritual Spells. Kant's expression changed, and he said, "Are you sure?" Last time, Andrew suppressed Zichen completely. All of Zichen's attacks were ineffective against him, although he had broken through this time, and his combat power had increased. Kant knew that the difference between them was not just a simple realm. It shouldn't be a big problem. In Zichen's body, the rules had been completely replenished. It should be impossible for the other party to suppress him. However, Zichen still wanted to try what would happen if they fought. He glanced in Spicer's direction, believing that they should have already sent the news. Next, he just had to wait. In the process of waiting, no one from the Hall of Spiritual Spells came to cause trouble. The crowd did not disperse. Everyone stayed in the distance, waiting to watch a good show. Chapter 5108. Andrew was led by a few spellbreakers to the outskirts of the city. As he descended, he saw Zichen standing up from the boulder. At this moment, Zichen was looking at him indifferently. A strange look appeared on Andrew's face. "You're still alive." "That's not all," Zichen said coldly. The energy around him began to surge. There was a total of 6 forces. 6 forces state, "Not only are you alive, but you've also broken through." When Andrew saw this, he clicked his tongue in wonder and said, "Saying that you stepped on dog shit and walked into dog shit luck is an insult to you. You're a miracle. How did you break through?" "Why don't you guess?" Zichen jumped down from the boulder and approached Andrew. "Why? Do you think you can beat me now that you've broken through? Have you forgotten how you ran away with your tail between your legs last time?" Andrew smiled disdainfully at the provocation in Zichen's eyes. Not many people knew about this. Many people asked curiously after hearing Andrew's words. Unfortunately, no one knew the answer. "Let's try again today." Zichen took the initiative to charge forward. The moment he got close to Andrew, he threw out a punch. It went straight for Andrew's face. Andrew stood there with a disdainful look on his face. Faced with this punch, he did not dodge. The punch hit his forehead, but the energy on it disappeared quickly. It did not hurt or itch. Kant's expression changed when he saw this. The scene from last time was happening again. Zi Chen's next punch came and went straight for Andrew's temple. The punch landed squarely on Andrew, but it did not cause any substantial damage. There was an uproar in the distance. Everyone did not understand why. Andrew's foot landed. Zi Chen blocked it with his hand and slid back. Andrew looked at Zi Chen. "Come back with me now. I won't kill you." Zi Chen smiled faintly and said, "You." Next, he attacked again and again. He used all kinds of powerful attacks, but he could not hurt Andrew at all. Just as his attacks were about to hit Andrew, they were dissolved by an invisible force. No one knew why this happened. However, everyone's eyes were burning with passion. If they could master such a move, wouldn't they be invincible? Kant wouldn't forget what happened last time, so he was filled with worry. Last time, Zi Chen had escaped. Would he be able to escape this time? He had already noticed that the people who had followed Andrew had quietly scattered in all directions. What's going on? Phoebe and the others were also shocked as they looked at Spicer, who was at the Sixth Force estate. Spicer shook his head and said, "It could be a deep secret." "This is too amazing. If everyone had this kind of skill, then everyone would be able to crush Zi Chen and grind him to the ground." Phoebe's eyes were filled with envy. They had suffered a great loss in front of Zi Chen. Every time they were crushed and humiliated. Seeing Zi Chen retreat again, Andrew said, "My patience is limited. I'll give you one last chance. Come back with me or you'll die. This time, I won't give you a chance to escape." Zi Chen stretched his muscles and said indifferently, "I can't deny that you guys do have some ability. You can almost completely restrain my energy, regardless of your cultivation level." It was the same for the 5-Force estate and the 6-Force estate. Andrew laughed mockingly. Not only did he restrain Zi Chen, but he also restrained all the Shadow Destroyers. The powerful Shadow Destroyers were just a joke in front of him. Then, Zi Chen changed the topic. But that's the end of it. Andrew seemed to have heard the biggest joke in the world and couldn't help but laugh. He looked at Zi Chen and said disdainfully, You want to change this situation? It's not that I'm looking down on you, but I'll just stand here and not move. You can't do anything to me, even if you tire yourself to death." Zi Chen also laughed and didn't argue. He released his aura fully at the 6-Force estate. The energy in his body vibrated, and so did the soul power in his sea of consciousness. At this moment, Zi Chen gave off an inexplicable feeling. It was as if he was a different person from before. Zi Chen's eyes sharpened. At this moment, the complete rules in his body were displayed. He approached Andrew again, this time even faster. The moment he got close, he punched out horizontally and smashed into Andrew's temple. Bam! Andrew's disdainful smile froze, and his body flew backward. In the distance, there was an uproar again. How could this be? Andrew landed on the ground. Zi Chen's figure flashed again, and he appeared in front of the other party, kicking out. Bam! Andrew was sent flying. When he landed, he coughed out a mouthful of blood. How could this be? Weren't you unable to defeat him earlier? Phoebe exclaimed again. Spicer shook his head, clearly unsure of what was going on. You! Even Andrew himself didn't know why this happened, let alone Spicer. He stood up and pointed at Zi Chen, his eyes full of disbelief. Let's go again. Zi Chen rushed forward and attacked. His huge fist smashed down, smashing into Andrew's face and sending him flying again. Without the suppression of the special rules, Andrew was just a 6 Forces realm cultivator. When Zi Chen was in the 5 Forces realm, he could already kill such an existence. Right now, it was not difficult to beat the other party with his fists. You're courting death. Andrew flipped over and got up. He was furious, and a brilliance appeared in front of him. This brilliance was dazzling and powerful, causing many people to palpitate. However, Zi Chen did not care. He still punched forward. In an instant, the brilliance shattered, and he punched his opponent's chest. He coughed out blood again, and flew backward. Andrew's aura also weakened. I don't believe it. Andrew was shocked and angry. He once again mobilized the rules that could suppress the shadow destroyers and attacked Zichen. This time, Zichen looked at him and said, I'll start with you. He stretched out his palm, and there was a light in it. He slapped out, "Wang." Countless vertical and horizontal rays of light formed what seemed to be the sharpest net in the world and swept past Andrew's attack. His attack was directly disintegrated. The light continued forward and swept past Andrew's body. First, a strange light appeared in his body, trying to block the attack of the net. But in the next moment, the light was crushed and the light net swept past his body. Many silk threads appeared on Andrew's body. He stood there, looking at Zichen in a daze, unable to say a word. Are you confused? Zichen smiled faintly, walked to his side, and whispered in his ear, Repair the small world, then repair the great world. There was a look of horror in Andrew's eyes. Unfortunately, he could not transmit such an important message. His body was disintegrated just like that. After landing, it was torn to pieces. Zichen looked up at the sky. His body was a small world, and now it had been completely repaired by the Soul Mountain. Next, he, the only shadow destroyer, would repair the great world's rules. Chapter 5109. Andrew was dead, and Zichen had taken his ring. However, he did not find any valuable clues inside. In terms of resources, he could not even match up to Zichen's. The sky darkened, and everyone returned one after another. It was not safe to be outside the city at night. They would never forget what had happened today. Zichen also returned to the city. At the very least, he would not be in danger tonight. He returned to his previous residence. He had originally planned to visit Marcus, but he did not expect that Marcus had already moved away. When he returned to his residence, it was already covered in dust. Zichen waved his hand, and a stream of air swept past. The room instantly became spotless. Zichen sat there and began to think about his future. Actually, returning this time was risky. However, if he wanted to continue growing, he could not leave the resources here. This was a risk that he had to take. It was not just a risk. Zichen had taken the resources, but did not return to the forest. This was a huge gamble. He wanted to gamble. He was also gambling. He even had to gamble. Everything would depend on tomorrow. The news of Andrew's death quickly spread to the ears of some observant people. Eden, who was at the 7th strength state, was actually Zichen's immediate superior. After hearing the news of Andrew's death in battle, he was very surprised. At his level, he already knew some secrets. This was also the reason why he was so calm when he went to recruit Zichen last time. He did not feel sorry for Zichen's rejection. Spellbreaker Bosch had also tried to recruit Zichen. When he heard that Andrew had been killed, his expression changed. Even if Eden knew some secrets, it was limited. He did not know as much as Bosch. If it was said that Zichen's ability to break through to the 6th force grade was a miracle, then killing Andrew was another miracle. On a larger scale, this was turning the sky upside down. However, the matter concerned the Shadow Destroyer. The two of them did not dare to casually deal with it. They could only wait for orders from above. Therefore, the two of them tacitly sent people to keep an eye on Zichen and did not do anything else. That night, the news spread to the depths of the city, causing quite a commotion. Immediately, some bad-tempered spellbreakers said that they wanted to kill Zichen. What kind of joke was this? The spellbreakers had suppressed the Shadow Destroyers for countless years. How could they let them overturn the situation? Clearly, there were still some people who remained rational among the furious crowd, and there were some disputes. This argument lasted for the entire night. The next day, Zichen walked out of his room at daybreak. Then he realized that many people had woken up earlier than him. Perhaps they hadn't slept at all. Gradually, more and more people gathered at the periphery. Of course, A large portion of them were there purely to watch the show. Zi-Chin, on the other hand, was waiting for trouble to come again. The waiting time was not long, only about 2 hours. 3 6 Powers realm cultivators appeared. They were all spellbreakers. One of them held a saber, while the other 2 held swords. The one with the saber looked at Zi-Chin and coldly asked, "Are you Zi-Chin?" "It's me." Zi-Chin nodded. "Die!" The man shouted and slashed down with the saber in his hand. A real saber light flew toward Zi-Chin, with him as the starting point. A gully appeared on the ground. All rules and restrictions were useless in front of a lawbreaker. Zi-Chin dodged. At the same time, a stream of light flew out. It was the massacre spirit. Puff! Just as Zi-Chin dodged the blade, the ray of light pierced through the man's temple, completely penetrating his body. The man's body swayed. The power flowing around him showed signs of exhaustion. The other 2 with swords saw this, and their expressions changed drastically. They were about to go forward and help. Puff! The next moment, the massacre spirit pierced through the man's heart from the back. Zi-Chin did not test the waters like yesterday. He directly used his full strength. After the rules of the small world in his body were displayed, his combat strength greatly increased. At this moment, Zi-Chin was the Shadow Destroyer. The nearby existences who had come to join in on the fun all felt a strong pressure that made them feel extremely uncomfortable. It was similar to the suppression of bloodline. Like the king of exotic beasts, it had a natural suppression effect. And this world originally belonged to the Shadow Destroyer. Now that Zi-Chin, the only Shadow Destroyer, had appeared, everyone felt the pressure. The man with the saber widened his eyes, as if he could not believe all this. Then his body swayed and he fell to the ground, dead. Swoosh! Zi-Chin's body flashed and rushed toward the 2 swords. Seeing this, the 2 of them immediately charged forward. They began to work together. Sharp sword chi tore through the air, carrying the attack of the rules as they attacked Zi-Chin. In Zi-Chin's hand, the bone staff smashed down and blocked the 2 swords. Hum! The massacre spirit flew forward like a stream of light and attacked one of them. Seeing this, the other party screamed and retreated, avoiding the attack of the massacre spirit. Bang! However, at this moment, Zi-Chin smashed down again and directly pushed the 6 Forces realm next to him back. Then his body slowed down and he approached the other party. His palm moved forward. Light intertwined between his palms, and this rule breaker was completed. The 6 Forces realm retreated in fear. After taking a few steps back, his body scattered with a crash. Seeing this, the last person immediately retreated. Previously, they could not win even when working together. Now that he was alone, he would definitely die. "You want to leave?" A cold light flashed in Zi-Chin's eyes as he rushed forward quickly. During this time, the massacre spirit was the first to attack, turning into a stream of light. At this moment, a person suddenly appeared and blocked in front of the 6 Forces realm. He grabbed the massacre spirit in his hand. Zi-Chin followed and slapped down with his palm. Light intertwined between his palms. The person also slapped down with his palm. Light flickered. Chi! Chi! The 2 attacks met and kept canceling each other out. Zi-Chin immediately retreated and looked forward warily. A person stood in front of him, surrounded by the light of 7 powers, the 7 Forces realm. The other party looked at Zi-Chin and said, "That's enough." The next moment, he let go of his hand and the massacre spirit flew back. The 6 Forces realm was terrified. When he turned around and saw the 7 Forces realm, he said in surprise, "Sir!" The 7 Forces realm waved his hand, indicating that he should not speak. After blocking Zi-Chin's palm, the 7 Forces realm's robe had become extremely tattered. Although he was not injured, he looked very embarrassed. He looked at Zi-Chin, and Zi-Chin looked back at him. The others around them did not even dare to breathe loudly. A seven forces realm was enough to make people respect him. Moreover, based on Zi Chen's terrifying combat strength, only a seven forces realm could suppress him. The seven forces realm looked at Zi Chen, but did not say anything. He turned around and left. Zi Chen noticed that there was blood dripping from the fingertip of the seven forces realm that had just caught the massacre spirit. Obviously, even a seven forces realm could not ignore the attack of a real shadow destroyer. Zi Chen let out a long sigh of relief. It seemed that he had made the right bet. After collecting the spoils, he returned to his room. After today's battle, he believed that there would be fewer troubles in the future. "Boy, you're very confident." As soon as he returned to his room, an indifferent voice sounded from Zi Chen's room. Chapter 5110. Someone had arrived in Zi Chen's room ahead of time, and he, a shadow destroyer, had not noticed at all. That person just sat there, smiling at Zi Chen. There were no energy fluctuations on his body, but Zi Chen felt a strong sense of danger. Zi Chen had fought with seven powers realms spellbreakers before, but this person had not shown any power, yet he could make him feel threatened. He must be extraordinary. Zi Chen looked at him, but his expression did not change much. "Then why don't you guess where I come from?" The person glanced at Zi Chen and said lightly. Zi Chen said, "The Hall of Spiritual Spells." A strange light flashed in the person's eyes. He seemed very surprised. "Why?" Zi Chen said, "The Hall of Spiritual Spells is a place for business. The most important thing is fairness. But I did not see it that day." "It's that simple?" "No, not only did I not see fairness, I saw aggressiveness." Zi Chen said, "I don't think it should be like this, especially when it comes to business, because no matter where it is, business is all about harmony." The person nodded. "That's right. The Hall of Spiritual Spells does not lie, but in terms of honesty, we absolutely cannot lie. So you have already guessed that I did not come to you for the 10 shares of true Dharma power." At that time, Zi Chen not only took away the corpse and terminated the transaction, but also took away an additional 1,000 true Dharma power. The reason for this was because the Hall of Spiritual Spells did not follow the rules in the first place. The person said again, "My name is Peng Ran. Why don't you guess again why I came here?" Zi Chen shook his head. "I can't guess." Peng Ran laughed. "You guessed it long ago. Is it because you care about my face?" "Very good. At least that's what I think." Zi Chen's emotions had completely calmed down. Peng Ran withdrew his smile and said, "I came this time not only to see the only shadow destroyer who broke the rules, but also to tell you a piece of news. The forces in the depths will no longer target you. But don't be happy too early. This doesn't mean that you can rest easy. There are still some radicals who won't let this go. But even if they target you, there will be a limit. So as long as you don't die within this limit, it's fine." Zi Chen nodded, indicating that he understood. "Aren't you going to ask why?" Peng Ran looked at the calm Zi Chen and asked curiously, "Maybe it has something to do with the mysterious rules." Zi Chen said, "You really are a smart person. One good thing about dealing with smart people is that you don't have to beat around the bush." Peng Ran took out an item and threw it to Zi Chen. Zi Chen subconsciously took it. "I'll leave the Hall of Spiritual Spells here to you. Manage it well. When you have the ability, go and take a look at the depths." Peng Ran said, "Of course, I believe that the Six Forces state is definitely not your final destination." With that, Peng Ran disappeared. Zi Chen finally breathed a sigh of relief. This time he had made the right bet. Back then, those Dharma breakers had taken over the nest and broken the rules of this world. And when the world was not complete, there were also problems in this world. Perhaps this problem had something to do with the passage that had not appeared in the depths. So now that another shadow destroyer had appeared, they did not mind taking a look or waiting to see if he could bring some changes to this world. just as Peng Ran said at the end, as long as he could continue to break through, there would be no problems. Zi Chen looked at this residence. He probably would not be staying here in the future. Holding the token Peng Ran gave him, Zi Chen went straight to the Hall of Spiritual Spells. When he reached the first floor, everyone's expression changed when they saw Zi Chen. They had all heard about what had happened yesterday. This Lord's strength was simply beyond their imagination. Zi Chen went to the second floor again. During this time, no one dared to stop him. He looked around and did not see the woman who had led him here that day. The others did not dare to approach Zi Chen. There was fear in their eyes. They were afraid that he was here for revenge. Zi Chen took out the token and said, "Where should I go next?" When everyone saw the token, their eyes widened and they hurriedly bowed to Zi Chen. This was the token of the highest steward. Just yesterday, Zi Chen had killed that steward. "Sir, please follow me." Immediately, a woman walked over. After seeing the token, she was not afraid anymore. With this item, he was definitely not here for revenge. How many stewards are there here? The woman led Zi Chen away from this level and headed straight for the upper level. "Sir, there is a deputy steward, a 5-strength realm cultivator, and 2 floor lords." The woman explained to Zi Chen. The third floor was not small. About half of it was occupied. The servant led Zi Chen to a room. "My lord, it's inside." But before she could push the door open, she heard a voice coming from inside the door. "Bitch, I've already said a lot of good things. Don't be ungrateful. Let me tell you, the steward is dead. Next, I'll be promoted to steward. Hurry up and hand over the corpse of the law-breaker beast. Otherwise, I'll find an excuse to kill you. That'll be the end of everything." Zi Chen waved his hand, stopping the woman from speaking. He frowned. "Now that's a good girl. Next, you'll serve me and do whatever I tell you to do. Now take off your clothes." "Sir, I have to go back to work." A woman's voice rang out. It was the same woman from yesterday. "If I tell you to stay, then stay," the man said angrily. "Bitch, you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." Then a woman's shriek rang out. Zi Chen pushed open the door. "Fuck, who let you in?" The man cursed, but when he looked up and saw who it was, he couldn't finish his sentence. At this moment, the beautiful woman was already pressed on the table, exposed to the view of the spring scenery. "What are you doing here? Who let you in? Do you know what this place is?" The man pretended to be calm and shouted, "Why haven't you left yet?" Thankfully, he knew shame and let go of the woman. When the woman saw Zi Chen, she lowered her head in shame and began to cry. Zi Chen produced a command medallion and waved it at the man. When the man saw the command medallion, his face fell. He looked to the side and saw the woman who had brought Zi Chen in. He nodded quietly. The man's face immediately turned pale. "Sir, please let me explain." Zi Chen didn't look at the assistant steward. Instead, he looked at the sobbing woman. "What's your name?" The woman looked up and said quietly, "Sir, my name is Maria." Zi Chen nodded and said, "The name is not bad. You lost your payment." Maria looked at the corpse of the law-breaker beast on the ground, but didn't dare to collect it. "What are you waiting for? You dropped your stuff. How could you be so careless? You've dirted Sir's floor. Can you bear the consequences?" The assistant steward shouted. Maria was so frightened that she trembled. She quickly collected the corpse. Zi Chen said, "If anyone asks, just say that I said that there's no need for an assistant steward." The assistant steward's face was filled with shock. "What do you mean? You want to fire me? Let me tell you." Before he could finish, Zi Chen flicked his finger. Chapter 5111. Fire? Am I that kind of person? Before his body disappeared, the assistant manager heard Zi Chen's calm words. He was only in the 5-strength state. Otherwise, he wouldn't have coveted Maria's law-breaking beast's corpse, because this was related to whether or not he could advance to the 6th strength state. But he didn't expect that Zichen would come. Moreover, he came as a manager. What was even more unexpected was that Zichen had the guts to kill someone in front of him. Wasn't he afraid that Sir would blame him? After all, he was appointed by the higher-ups. Maria and the woman stood there, not daring to move. Obviously, they were scared stiff. Zichen waved his hand, indicating that the two could leave. When Maria returned to the 2nd floor, the other people looked at her strangely. They naturally knew that Maria had been called up by the assistant manager. As for what would happen, everyone could guess. However, after the woman explained what had happened, their expressions changed again. The assistant manager was dead? Wasn't this newcomer, Lord Zichen, a little too barbaric? After closing the door at night, Zichen met the people of the Hall of Spiritual Spells. Although there were only 3 floors, there were more than 100 people working here. They all had their own duties. Originally, there was 1 manager and 2 assistant managers. They were usually called Hall Master and Assistant Hall Master. There was a Hall Master on each floor. As for the Hall Master on the 3rd floor, the assistant manager was temporarily in charge. There weren't many things on the 3rd floor, but they were all high-quality goods. Usually, no one would pay attention to them. Because the 7th strength state were all inside, there were very few people outside. Therefore, the majority of the profits were still on the 1st and 2nd floors. After Maria's explanation, Zichen knew that the Hall of Spiritual Spells was just a business. It wasn't an official force. Other than their Hall of Spiritual Spells, there were 7 other halls of spiritual spells in this area and 4 halls of spell breaking. The number of halls of spiritual spells was double that of spell breaking. From this point, one could see how many spiritual spell practitioners there were and how precious spell breakers were. Between the 2 different spell halls, resources could be exchanged, but one had to go to a place called the Spirit Breaking Hall. That was the core of all resources, and any resource that one wanted had to be exchanged there. Zichen briefly listened to the names of some resources. Among them, the one that left the deepest impression was that the Spirit Breaker area had all sorts of resources, such as martial crystals, killing crystals, martial crystal sources, and so on. However, some of the rarer items might not be able to be exchanged even with resources. The sheer number of resources gave Zichen a headache. He had originally thought that there were only a few types of necessary energy. It was said that these purchasing matters were originally handled by Deputy Manager Frank. After Zichen killed Frank, there was no new deputy manager, so it was up to Zichen, the manager, or rather the hall master, to handle these matters personally. How could Zichen know anything about purchasing? He was a little annoyed. If he had known that the guy would be useful, he would have let him live for a while. Is it very troublesome? Zichen looked at everyone. Everyone did not know how to answer. Maria said, "My lord, it's mainly some trivial matters and registration. It seems a lot, but it's actually not that troublesome. You just have to be careful." Zichen nodded and said, "All right, then I'll leave the purchasing matters to you." Huh. Maria was stunned. The expressions of the others also changed, and when they looked at Maria, there was obvious envy in their eyes. "What's with the huh?" "It's you." Zichen rubbed his forehead and said, "I killed that idiot and got myself into trouble for no reason. You have to bear some responsibility." After that, Zichen turned and went upstairs. "If there's anything you can't handle, come to me. As for the other people and matters, everything will remain the same. You will remain the same as you were before, and so will your remuneration." "Yes." Seeing Zichen go upstairs, everyone immediately nodded in agreement. After Zichen left, someone immediately went to congratulate Maria. Maria blushed and said, "I'm just helping with the purchasing. He didn't make me a deputy palace master, so there's no need to congratulate me. Who doesn't know that the purchasing price is high?" "Maria!" This time, My lord has taken a liking to you and asked you to help. You will enjoy endless benefits, and when the time comes, don't forget us sisters. Also, you must seize this opportunity. Who knows, you might become a deputy palace master." Hearing her sisters speak, Maria seemed to have thought of something, and her pretty face immediately turned bright red. "What do you mean my lord has taken a liking to me? Although my lord is indeed handsome." "Humph! Someone has become a phoenix, but do you really think that purchasing is something that everyone can do?" A mocking voice came from afar. "Keep, what do you mean?" The woman who had brought Zietjen upstairs looked at the man who spoke with dissatisfaction. "Do you really think that Frank has nothing to do all day?" The man named Keep mocked. "Then you're too naive. You only see the surface, but you don't see how much he's sacrificed for this matter. If you don't believe me, you'll know once you try." Before it even started, Maria became worried. She felt regret in her heart. If she knew this would happen, she wouldn't have opened her mouth. However, on second thought, the Lord had killed that fellow for her sake, so she should take responsibility for it. After all, her Lord had already taken the biggest responsibility, so what was this small matter? The Hall of Spiritual Spells was the main way for people to exchange for resources, so there were many people who came every day. In less than 2 days, there weren't enough resources, and they needed to go purchase them. Maria took the resources and went to the spirit-breaking place alone. It was said that the reason why this place was called the spirit-breaking place was because the spirit-breaking place suppressed the spirit-breaking place. Obviously, no matter what, the spirit-breaking place wanted to suppress the spirit-breaking place. Zietjen stayed in his office these few days. Behind him was his residence, where he could rest. Other than that, there was another residence, but he didn't go back. Maria took the resources and waited outside for 4 hours, but she didn't see the Lord who was distributing the resources. After another 2 hours, she still didn't see him, so she could only bite the bullet and walk in to find him. She found the person, but the resources were gone. That person's attitude wasn't bad, and he asked her to come early tomorrow. Maria, who didn't get anything, caused some dissatisfied voices when she returned. Luckily, the remaining resources could last for about 2 days. The next day, before the sun rose, Maria arrived at the spirit-breaking place. After opening the door, she was the first to enter, but she was told that she didn't have an appointment, so she could only wait outside. Another few hours passed, and when she went in again, she was told that the resources had been distributed, and she had to come early the next day. The attitude was still good, but there was nothing. Maria went for another 2 days, but it was still the same. The things in the Hall of Spiritual Spells were obviously gone, which made the spirit casters very dissatisfied. At the same time, the people in the Hall of Spiritual Spells also expressed their dissatisfaction with her. Some even scolded her, saying that if she couldn't get the resources back, then the Hall of Spiritual Spells shouldn't be opened. But even so, it would affect some customers, causing the business here to be worse than before. Maria, who was scolded by everyone, cried. Helplessly, she could only ask Zietjen for help. She knocked on Zietjen's door. After entering, she took the initiative to close the door. "Why are you here?" Zietjen smiled and looked at her. Maria pursed her red lips and looked at this handsome lord, thinking that she didn't lose out. Chapter 51:12. A naked body appeared in front of Zietjen. This was the first time she had done such a thing. Maria's face was red, like a ripe fruit, very attractive. "What are you doing? Hurry up and put it on." Zietjen immediately covered his eyes, but it was obviously just for show. His soul power was much clearer. "Hurry up!" He urged again, very embarrassed. "Sir, Maria pursed her lips. Her red cheeks were full of grievance and guilt. "If you have something to say, say it properly. You don't have to do this," Zietjen hurriedly said. He tried his best to focus his perception on her cheeks, probing for changes in her expression and not her body. Thinking of her companion's suggestion, Maria was about to move forward again. "Sir," some energy pushed Maria back. Zi-Chin pretended to be angry. "If you have something to say, say it first. Otherwise, I will throw you out." Maria couldn't see the change in Zi-Chen's expression because his hand was covering his face. But from his tone, it seemed that he was really angry, so she could only put on her clothes again. Of course, the so-called clothes were just energy. If she was really thrown out, she would die of embarrassment. "If you have something to say, say it properly. Why did you make such a fuss? Who taught you this?" Zi-Chen put down his hand and said somewhat speechlessly. Even now, his little heart was still thumping wildly. "Sir." Maria put on her clothes and knelt down again. Zi-Chen rubbed his forehead and said speechlessly, "I say, can we talk properly first?" Maria knelt on the ground and said with a choked voice, "Sir, I messed up. Our Hall of Spiritual Law might have to close." The scene of Zi-Chen turning pale with fright or flying into a rage, as she had imagined, did not happen. Zi-Chen laughed when he heard this. "The Hall of Spiritual Law has been open for such a long time and hasn't closed. You think you can close the door in just a few days? All right, get up first and tell me what happened." Maria did not dare to stand up. She just knelt there and told him everything. Zi-Chen was even more speechless when he heard this. "So, you listened to other people's advice and did this?" Maria's face blushed again. At the same time, she lowered her voice and said, "Actually, I did it willingly." Zi-Chen was even more speechless. He pretended not to hear anything. "It's not your fault. There's no need to be like this. Get up and come with me." Zi-Chen stood up and stretched his body. He had only been idle for a few days, and now trouble had come knocking on his door. The two of them left this level and headed down. "Sir, our resources here." Zi-Chen had just walked downstairs when a man came up to him, ready to report the situation here. Zi-Chen waved his hand. "Got it. I'll deal with it right away." Maria led Zi-Chen to the place where the spirit was broken. Along the way, Milia told Zi-Chen some things to pay attention to. When they arrived at the place where the spirit was broken, there were already people there. Zi-Chen was at the back of the line. Finally, Zi-Chen arrived. The man glanced at Zi-Chen, then at Maria. "Do you have an appointment?" he asked casually. Maria nodded. "Yes." Then she took out a list and handed it to the man. She was very nervous the entire time. After looking at the list, the man said casually, "You don't have any of these things. Come early tomorrow." Maria looked at Zi-Chen for help. Every time she came here it was like this. "Okay," Zi-Chen said. "Then I'll make an appointment tomorrow morning." "Okay." The man nodded. "Don't I need to show proof?" Zi-Chen asked. "No need. Just come directly," the man said casually. "That's not very good. How would you know if I made an appointment or not?" Zi-Chen asked again. "I say, can you hurry up? Don't waste our time." Someone in the back said impatiently. Zi-Chen's dilly-dallying made the people in the back of the line unhappy. Zi-Chen looked back at the crowd. "Didn't you hear?" he said. "I don't have any more resources. Come early tomorrow." As he spoke, Zi-Chen turned to look at that person. "Don't you agree?" The man didn't know how to respond, so he didn't say anything. The others looked at Zi-Chen with disdain. Where did this idiot come from? How could he be so blind? Not only was Zi-Chen blind, he even took out the list and showed it to everyone. "If you don't believe me, take a look. I really don't have any more of these things. Come early tomorrow." Maria stood there, looking at her superior. She couldn't help but feel bitter. Her superior was such a valiant man, but now, F***CK off. You country bumpkin who hasn't seen the world. One of the people in the line was very impatient. He smashed the list in Zi-Chen's hand, then walked over and took out another list. "Damn it, we ran into an idiot. Hurry up." The man picked up the list, glanced at it, and then began to help the other person take his share. Zichen walked over and just watched, not saying anything. After the man had taken all the shares, he stood up and spat viciously at Zichen. Zichen still didn't say anything, but the smile on his face was gone. The people in the back continued forward. The man glanced at the list, then continued to take his share. Zichen put his broken list back together. After the second man left, Zichen walked over. The man in the back was very unhappy, but when Zichen glanced at him, the cursing words he was about to say died in his throat. Zichen put down the list. The man glanced at it, then said with a cold face, "Didn't I tell you that there are no more resources today? Come early tomorrow?" "I'll give you one more chance," said Zichen. "Reorganize your words. If you don't know how to reorganize them, then go call the manager out. He should know how to speak better than you." When the man heard this, he immediately became angry. "Who the fuck are you? How dare you talk to me like that?" He slammed the table and stood up, his eyes flashing with cold, killing intent. "Do you want to die?" When the others saw this, they immediately retreated. Clearly, there was going to be a good show to watch. They looked at Zichen with ridicule in their eyes. This idiot really hasn't seen the world. Of all the places to cause trouble, he dares to cause trouble here? Isn't he looking to die? Zichen said calmly, "Earlier you said there were no more resources, but you gave me enough for 2 people. So now I'm here to exchange." "Who the fuck do you think you are?" The man pointed at Zichen's nose. "If I want exchange for you, I'll exchange for you. If I don't want exchange for you, I won't exchange for you. I've rejected you time and time again to give you face, but you don't know what's good for you. Let me reorganize my words. See, this is what I've organized." Zichen didn't get angry. Instead, he laughed. He grabbed the man's collar and pulled him out. "You should have said that earlier." The smile on Zichen's face didn't fade. He punched the man's head. Bam! Chapter 51:13. Dong! The impact was so strong that even the spirit breaker area was trembling. When the others saw this, their expressions changed. This guy was too arrogant. He dared to attack at the spirit breaker area. This was the official force of Pofa City. Who dared to behave atrociously here? Did he have a death wish? "You're dead." The guy who was hit in the head and was dizzy was not afraid at all. He laughed and said, "Haha, you're dead." Maria looked at Zichen worriedly. She regretted and blamed herself. It was because of her incompetence that Sir was dragged into this. This was troublesome. Zichen did not say a word and punched the second time. Dong! Ripples spread out and the spirit breaker area continued to tremble. The aura of this person was obviously getting weaker. "Haha, kill me if you can. You're just punching me and not killing me. I look down on you." His face was completely stuck to the ground, but he was still fearless and arrogant. Zichen punched the third time. Dong! The stone floor cracked and spread out like a spider web. Those who were shocked finally came to their senses and shouted at Zichen to stop. Of course, they were only shouting. No one stepped forward at this moment. They just shouted and cheered. Anyway, this guy was going to die anyway. "Come on, kill me, or I'll look down on you." He was just a 5 forces state cultivator. After he died, there would not be a corpse left, but he still dared to shout at this moment. The reason was that he believed that Zichen would not dare to kill anyone here. Zichen stood up and stopped punching. The guy sat on the ground and spat at Zichen. "I look down on you. What can you do about it?" He looked disdainful. "Are you trying to scare me? Let me tell you, as long as I'm here, you can forget about exchanging resources. Not even a single one." He then pointed at Maria. "Even if you personally put her naked on my bed, I will not exchange it for you." Zichen raised his hand and a ray of light flew past. The guy's arm flew out. He shrieked, "How dare you? How dare you do such a thing?" Zichen didn't say anything. The second light flashed past his body and his other arm was gone. He screamed, "All right, kill me if you can. Come on." Chin continued to wave his hand for the third time. His face was still expressionless. One of his opponent's legs was gone, and he fell to the ground unsteadily. "Come on, you still have a leg." The other party was still shouting with a ferocious expression. "Pooh!" In Chen's hand, light flashed once more. After the last leg left the body, it turned into light and disappeared. "Come on, there's still the body." The other party was still shouting. "If you have the ability, then separate the body as well." Chen smiled and said, "There's no rush. I'll let you recover for a while before we continue. Wouldn't it be too boring to just die like this?" Chen squatted down, took out a strand of energy and handed it to him. "You can refine it now." The other party mocked. "What? Are you afraid that I'm dead? You'll be implicated too? Let me tell you, even if I don't die, you'll die 100 times for attacking me here. The dignity of the spirit-breaking site is not to be trampled on." Chen said calmly, "You are thinking too much." The others looked at this scene in shock, thinking that this guy's guts were a little too big. However, they soon realized where the problem lay. Why didn't anyone come out to stop such a big thing? The other party seemed to have realized this as well and shouted, "Guards! Someone is causing trouble here!" The surroundings were quiet and no one responded. "Where are the guards? Hurry up and come out. Can't you see that someone is causing trouble?" The other party shouted again, his voice extremely loud. In a room upstairs at the spirit-breaking site, a man was leaning against a chair. Of course, he heard the commotion from before, but he didn't go out. In front of him stood a person who was reporting the latest situation. "Billy's 4 limbs have been chopped off by someone. Billy is still shouting at the moment," the other party said respectfully. "Sir, should we let the guards do something?" "Do what? Do you want to die?" The man said calmly, "Even if all of you go, you won't be a match for him." "He is?" The other party was puzzled. "You don't need to know who he is. Since someone is using Billy's hand to cause trouble, let them deal with it themselves. It doesn't matter who lives or dies. But to use someone else to kill someone, do you think I'm stupid?" Seeing the change in the other party's expression, the man continued, "In order to prevent you from reporting, you will stay here and wait for the results." Cold sweat appeared on the other party's forehead, and he hurriedly said, "I don't dare!" "Where is everyone? Where the hell did they all go?" Billy was still shouting. "I didn't see them. Did they almost destroy the spirit-breaking site?" The surroundings were quiet, and there was still no one around. "Guards!" Billy was shouting at the top of his lungs, but the fierceness on his face was obviously less. The bystanders were also puzzled. Why was it like this? Chen kindly reminded him, "You need to replenish your life force, or you won't be able to hold on until reinforcements arrive." He kindly gave him a stream of pure energy. Billy didn't say anything and ate it. No matter what, he had to save his life first. As expected of pure energy, his life force quickly recovered. His arm grew out first. At this moment, Chen continued to attack. With a puff, the arm that just grew out was chopped off again. Billy shrieked, "Are you crazy? Why did you attack again?" Chen explained, "I only asked you to save your life, not to recover." Billy could only shout again, calling for reinforcements. The onlookers put away their sneers, and their expressions became strange. Until now, no one had come to the spirit-breaking site. This was very strange. Could it be that this person had a powerful background, so no one dared to attack? Milia was also very confused. To her, this should be the most sacred place in Pofa City. No matter if you were a dragon or a tiger outside, you had to lower your head here. This was also the reason why everyone here was so arrogant. She looked around and saw a guard. That guard stood in the distance and didn't come closer. As if he sensed Milia's gaze, he quickly retreated and disappeared. Why didn't he come? After shouting many times, no one came. Billy was a little panicked. "Sir, save me. Someone has disregarded the rules and started a massacre here." Billy could only shout again. Zichen narrowed his eyes. "Could it be this, sir?" "Humph! What a scandal, what a scandal!" A cold snort was heard, and a person walked out from the depths. He looked at Zichen and said coldly, "How dare you cause trouble here? Men, take him down." Zichen looked at the sir and suddenly laughed. More than 10 people ran out from inside. There were 4th strength realm cultivators and 5th strength realm cultivators. They immediately attacked Zichen. Buzz! Zichen stood there motionless. The spirit of massacre turned into a stream of light and swept past everyone's bodies. Then, one by one, the guards' legs were chopped off, and they fell to the ground one by one. Chapter 5114. Zichen's methods were so terrifying that all the onlookers were stunned. They retreated again and again. The mockery and disdain from before had long disappeared. Billy, whose limbs had been chopped off, fell to the ground. At this moment he felt that something was wrong. He cried for help. "Sir, save me." At this moment he was really scared. "You're the one who did this." Zichen's eyes turned cold as he looked at the Six Forces realm cultivator. "What did you say?" The Six Forces state cultivator said indifferently, "You're causing trouble in the Spirit Breaker area. You're courting death. Guards, this person has disregarded the rules of the Spirit Breaker area and trampled on the dignity of the Spirit Breaker area. Kill him." His shout didn't have any effect at all. Other than those who had lost their legs and were wailing on the ground, no one else came. "Hobson, how dare you? You don't even want to protect the dignity of the Spirit Breaker area?" A hint of anger appeared on the Six Forces state cultivator's face. A punch came at him. Bam! The Six Forces state cultivator's body bent like a shrimp. Then Zichen threw another uppercut. The Six Forces state cultivator was sent flying. He spat out blood and a few teeth. The Six Forces state cultivator fell to the ground and continued to shout. However, the other people in the Spirit Breaker area pretended not to hear him. They all pretended to be deaf and mute. From this point, it could be seen that in this place of spirit destruction, it was definitely not a monolithic block of iron. Therefore, Zichen stepped forward and kicked the Six Forces state cultivator until his face was bruised and swollen. "How dare you trample on the dignity of the Spirit Breaker area?" While the Six Forces state cultivator was wailing, he did not forget to threaten Zichen. Zichen smiled coldly and started to attack. Poof! One of his arms was gone. He was immediately covered in blood. Compared to Billy, who was in the Five Forces state, this was much more miserable. The Six Forces state cultivator recalled Billy's miserable state and immediately had a look of horror on his face. Billy did not have a real body and had lost his limbs. As long as he used pure energy, he would be able to recover quickly. However, he was different. He had a real body. Once his limbs were gone, it would be a serious injury. Even if he used true energy, it would take him a long time to recover. "My lord, save me!" The Six Forces realm cultivator shouted at the top of his lungs. At this moment, he was also afraid. As for Billy, he was only at the Five Forces boundary. Originally, he had been relying on this Six Forces boundary. Who would have thought that things would turn out like this? The others were shocked, not to mention why the situation had turned out this way. Just the battle prowess of this lord was already very powerful. Pooh! The other arm was gone. From the looks of it, the other 2 legs wouldn't be able to last much longer. The other people who were originally lying on the ground and wailing all sensibly crawled to the side, not daring to block the way. They didn't dare to wail any more, fearing that Zichen would make an example of them. "Stop!" Finally, a dignified voice sounded. An old man came and looked coldly at Zichen. "You dare to attack me here? How dare you?" It was still the same excuse, which was to convict him as soon as he arrived. Zichen said, "So you're the one behind the scenes?" The old man was enraged. "Impudent! What do you think this place is?" Zichen said, "A place for trading, a place for exchanging resources." "Since you know this, why did you break the rules? You knowingly broke the rules. How should you be punished?" The old man's eyes were cold and aggressive. Zichen looked back at Billy and asked, "Do you know what this place is?" Billy trembled and didn't know how to answer. Zichen answered his own question. "This is a place for trading, a place for exchanging resources." This was his answer before, and now he said it again. This made Billy even more confused. What did Zichen mean by telling him this? "And you know this, but you deliberately don't give me resources and deliberately make things difficult for me? In your eyes, is there still a place for breaking the spirit? Are there still rules?" Facing Zichen's reprimand, Billy's eyes widened, but he didn't know what to say. Breaking the rules knowingly is a crime that even death can't wipe out. Killing intent flashed in his eyes, and the slaughter spirit appeared again. This time, it directly pierced through Billy's head. His attack was sharp and decisive. Billy's eyes widened. He didn't expect that the other party would kill him at this time. He didn't die even after withstanding so much pressure, but now he was dead. He couldn't figure it out. There was no need to think. His body turned into light and dissipated. "You're courting death." The old man was furious and rushed toward Zichen. Zichen's face was also filled with anger. This kind of petty person was the most annoying. He directly punched. A powerful force flowed between the fists, and at the same time, the crisscrossing rules appeared. With a huge tremor, Zichen's body slid back. Looking at the old man again, there were 7 types of power around him, releasing a powerful aura. This scene caused quite a commotion. Everyone was incomparably shocked. Zichen looked at the old man and said, "I originally thought that you were at least a spell breaker, but I didn't expect that you were just a spirit spell master. You don't have to thank me for killing a person who deserved to die, although I did it to help the spirit breaking office." Ignoring the old man's increasingly ugly expression, Zichen looked at the 6th strength realm cultivator. That guy didn't care about the rules and disregarded the dignity and face of the spirit breaking office. You, as the master, not only did you not stop him, you even went from bad to worse. Zichen said, "Do you know what your actions are called? This is like the trust and face that the spirit breaking office has accumulated over the years was thrown to the ground. And when you came, not only did you not pick it up, you stepped on it and spat on it. Tell me, what's the point of having you at the spirit breaking office?" The slaughter spirit appeared again. "You're courting death." The 7th strength realm cultivator was furious and blocked in front of the slaughter spirit. Zichen smiled coldly, and a light flew out from his sea of consciousness. This was his spell breaker power. Shwa! Like a sword light, it went straight for the old man. The reason why spell breakers were superior here was because of their strong and special soul power. Now, the 7th strength realm cultivator had no choice but to give up blocking the slaughter spirit and form a defensive stance. Poof! He blocked Zichen's attack, but the 6th strength realm cultivator couldn't. The slaughter spirit directly pierced through his mind. Soul power. He's the shadow destroyer, Zichen. The onlookers finally reacted, and someone immediately exclaimed loudly. As the purchasing staff of the Hall of Spiritual Spells, they rarely came out and had their own place. Although they had never seen Zichen before, they had heard of Zichen's name. Now that they saw a person with 2 types of energy, they immediately guessed his identity. The 6th strength realm cultivator was dead. As expected of a shadow destroyer, he completely disregarded the rules. The 7th strength realm cultivator was full of murderous intent. Zichen said indifferently, "I'll say the same thing again. No need to thank me. You can disregard the dignity of the spirit breaking office, and even step on it, but I won't. After all, I still have to exchange for resources here. After speaking, Zi-chun turned to the crowd and said, "Everyone, there are no more resources for today. Come back tomorrow. Of course, when you come back tomorrow, remember to leave my spot empty. After all, I made an appointment in advance, and it's been a few days." Chapter 51:15. With that, Zi-chun turned and left. No one dared to stop him. The realm of 7 strengths wanted to stop him, but he knew his own strength. It would be difficult to kill Zi-chun now. He could only watch coldly as Zi-chun left. At the same time, he was thinking of another way. Maria followed behind Zi-chun. Even though they were far away from the spirit breaking chamber, she still felt like she was dreaming. He killed someone in the spirit breaking chamber and left so easily. Inside the spirit breaking chamber, the others were still looking at each other, not understanding the situation. At this moment, someone finally walked out. "Man, hurry up and take care of the body. This is a place of business. How can there be blood everywhere?" The realm of 7 strengths looked back at Hobson and said coldly, "Hobson, someone came to the spirit breaking chamber to cause trouble and trampled on the dignity of the spirit breaking chamber. How could you let him go?" The realm of 6 strengths, named Hobson, said calmly, "Is that so? How bold! Men, investigate this thoroughly. Once the truth is found, there will be no tolerance." Then he looked at the people standing there. "What are you doing here?" One of them cupped his fist and said, "Sir, we are here to exchange for resources. We haven't exchanged for today's resources yet. Sir, the matter has been investigated. Under Jimmy's instructions, Billy has targeted spiritual spell hall number 4 time and time again, causing them to be on the verge of closing down. This time, the new hall master personally asked for an explanation, but he was still targeted. That's why he fought." The speaker's voice wasn't loud, but it wasn't soft either. It was loud enough for everyone to hear him clearly. In such a short time, the truth had been discovered. Moreover, there was a hidden meaning in his words. Many people reacted in hindsight. Hobson's expression changed when he heard this. "What? Something like this can happen in our spirit-breaking chamber. What kind of situation did you push him into that he would kill someone in anger? Our spirit-breaking chamber has always been fair and just. How can we allow such a person to exist? Kick out all the people who helped the evildoer and never hire them again." "Yes." The person immediately nodded. "How dare you, Hobson?" he cried. "Do you know what you're doing?" The 7th Force Realm cultivator angrily shouted. That guy didn't put the Spirit Breaker department in his eyes at all. He threw the department's face to the ground and kept trampling on it. But you didn't go up and pick it up. You actually trampled on it a few more times. Hobson suddenly raised his hand, and the being stopped. Just when everyone thought that Hobson was going to change his mind, he said, "Remember, when you drive them out, break their legs. Tell them not to be lackeys anymore." "Understood." The person turned around and left. Hobson looked back at the realm of 7 forces and said, "I don't care about face. All I know is that the Spirit Breaker office is a place of business, and we must maintain absolute fairness. I don't care what kind of personal grudges you have, or how you want to settle them. I don't care if you fight to the death, but don't use public power for personal gain. It's a pity that the 2 of them are already dead. Otherwise, I would have let them know the price of using public service for personal gain. I guarantee that I'll make them wish they were dead." At the end of his sentence, Hobson's eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. The other people who had come to exchange for resources couldn't help but shiver. It was obvious that this person was truly angry. When Zi-chun and Maria returned, they saw that many people had gathered at the entrance. These people had all come to exchange for resources, but unfortunately there were no more resources that they needed. Thus, they were all very dissatisfied and had gathered here to demand an explanation. When they saw that Zi-chun had returned, they all looked at Zi-chun. Many of these people recognized Zichen, and their expressions all changed. When the people in the Hall of Spiritual Spells called out, "Hall Master," their expressions changed even more. They clearly hadn't expected that Zichen would come here. Zichen looked at the crowd and said, "Everyone, there's been a small incident. At the latest, all the resources will be back in the day after tomorrow." Without waiting for anyone to ask, Zichen said, "Of course, it could also be tomorrow. If you want to wait patiently, you can come back tomorrow to exchange for resources. I'll give you a 5% discount on all the resources." This discount was very attractive. After all, the Hall of Spiritual Spells always had a fixed price. "What if the resources don't come back tomorrow?" someone asked worriedly. Zichen smiled and said, "Then come back the day after tomorrow. I'll give everyone a 10% discount." This made everyone suck in a breath of cold air. This discount was absolutely unprecedented. For a moment, everyone hoped that the resources wouldn't come back tomorrow. Then, the day after tomorrow, they would have a shocking price. As the Hall Master, Zichen naturally had the absolute right to speak and set the price. Even if the others had some complaints, they didn't dare to say anything. "Call me tomorrow morning. We'll go again." Zichen looked at Maria, and the latter nodded repeatedly. Zichen went back upstairs. Maria continued working. Some colleagues came over to ask what had happened. After Maria told them everything, everyone was very surprised. For many years, they had never heard of anyone who dared to make a move in the spirit-breaking area and was able to escape unscathed. The next day, as soon as the sky brightened, Maria came to call Zichen. The two of them were the first to arrive at the spirit-breaking area. During this time, the door was closed. After a while, other people came. When they saw Zichen in front of them, Zichen's face changed. They had already heard about what had happened yesterday, and that existence who had spat at Zichen before, after hearing that Zichen had killed someone, was so scared that he didn't dare to come today. The door opened. Zichen and Maria walked in. A newcomer was standing there. Maria immediately went forward and took out the list that she had made last night. The newcomer looked at the list and then looked at Zichen. Zichen didn't say anything. He just looked behind him. If he couldn't get the resources today, these people wouldn't be able to get them either. If someone else targeted him, then he didn't mind continuing to attack. After all, he had the right of reason. Wait a moment. The newcomer didn't make things difficult for him. After saying that, he quickly left. Maria, who had been very nervous, let out a sigh of relief. At the very least, this was much better than she had been in the past. The newcomer took the list and went to look for Hobson. In the end, he was scolded by Hobson. "You're here to exchange resources. Now that you don't give them to others, you want to die? If you want to die, then die far away. Don't drag me down with you. Damn it! Did you forget those two from yesterday?" Under Hobson's curses, the other party went back down and returned with all sorts of resources. Looking at the resources, Maria was so happy that she almost cried. The Hall of Magic could be maintained. Zichen didn't say much. Since the people at the spirit-breaking area wanted to pretend that nothing had happened yesterday, he didn't mind. Everything was back on track, that's all. So when Maria returned with the resources, everyone saw the smile on her face and couldn't smile. Because if the goods came tomorrow, there would be a 10% discount. Maria smiled. "My lord said that although the resources have come back, there will still be a 5% discount tomorrow." Zichen returned to his residence. In his heart, he wondered if he should find a deputy hall master. Chapter 51:16. With that thought in mind, Zichen decided to take action. He left his residence and went to find Kant. He told him why he was here. "You want me to be the deputy manager." Kant was stunned. He had only just found out that Zichen was going to be the manager of the Hall of Spiritual Spells. He was surprised at that time. Why would a spell breaker be so bored? "You can also call me deputy manager." Zichin said, "Don't think that you can't do it just because you have a high position. I believe in you." Kant's mouth twitched. He was a Six Forces state spellbreaker. He was qualified to be a manager. Deputy manager? A high position? But looking at the person in front of him, he decided not to argue. First of all, he couldn't argue. After all, Zichin was the reason why he could reach the Six Forces state. Second, he had argued with Zichin and his friends before. In the end, none of them got the upper hand. Why? Although he didn't argue, he still wanted to know the reason. Why did the Hall of Spiritual Spells need a Six Forces state spellbreaker to be the deputy manager? Since I'm the manager, I have to manage it well. Zichen's words made Kant smile. With Zichen's combat power, he could reap a lot of benefits just by going outside the city. Why would he care about such a small amount of resources? You don't want to. Zichin looked at Kant. Kant quickly stopped smiling. I'm happy. I'm happy. Then, Zichin led Kant to the Hall of Spiritual Spells. As they walked, Zichin said, "You're a spellbreaker. No matter your identity or position, you should have a high position. So, I'll leave the purchasing task to you." Kant nodded silently. When they arrived at the Hall of Spiritual Spells, he was surprised to see so many people. It seemed that business was very good. I gave them a 5% discount. After all, they've been waiting for a few days, Zichin said. Kant glanced at Zichin. He seemed to understand Zichin's intention. After Zichin introduced Kant to everyone was stunned. A Six Forces realm lawbreaker came here to be a deputy hall master? Normally, he might not be willing to be the hall master, right? The face of this palace master was simply too big. But while they were shocked, some people also subconsciously looked at Maria. Previously, everyone thought that Maria would become the vice palace master. After all, she had always been in charge of purchasing, although she had never completed the task. Zichin led Kant upstairs. It seems like some people's hopes of flying to the top have been dashed. In the end, they are still nothing more than chickens. Someone sneered. "Keep, what do you mean?" Immediately, a woman said in dissatisfaction, "Nothing much. I'm just saying that not everyone can become a vice palace master." Coupe smiled coldly and turned to leave. Maria was so angry that her eyes turned red, but she couldn't refute. She could only sulk by herself. She had never thought of becoming a vice palace master. She just wanted to repay the Lord and do something for him. After arriving at Zichen's office, Kant sat down and asked, "It's just a small place. What do you plan to do?" "Help run the business better. If the big shots inside take a fancy to me, they might take me deeper." In the past, Zichin didn't even dare to dream of going deeper. But now it was different. He had advanced to the Six Forces realm. Next, it was very likely that he would reach the Seven Forces realm, the Eight Forces realm, or even the Nine Forces realm. Therefore, he had to think about things that he didn't think about before. Whether or not he could go back, he had to go deeper and find out. And this Hall of Spiritual Spells was an opportunity. "What do you plan to do?" Kant asked again. "The profit of the various resources in the Hall of Spiritual Spells is about 10%. I will lower it a little here, but the main thing is the spirit-breaking section. I hope you can go and negotiate with them so that the purchase price can be lower." This was a plan that Zichin had thought of long ago. As long as the price was lowered, he would lower the price accordingly. The business would be very good. And when the business was good, the total profit would naturally increase. "I don't have the ability to do that. I don't know anyone there." Kant smiled bitterly. "No rush. You can go and buy for a while. We'll talk about it when you're familiar with it," Zichin said. "During this time, I will also go to the other halls of spiritual spells to take a look." Okay, the two of them settled down for the time being. Because of the discount, business was very good. The next day, Maria took the list and brought Kant to the spirit-breaking section. During this time, Maria was very nervous. because spirit breakers were born to be superior and were said to be difficult to deal with. She was silent the whole time. Occasionally, Kant would ask some questions, and she would answer whatever he asked. She would not say a word more. Kant thought that she was just so cold, so he did not say anything more. When it came to the exchange of resources, there were no problems. Kant stood to the side and watched. It was just that many people looked at him strangely, because Kant did not hide the aura of the spirit breakers, for fear that others would not know. This was also Zi Chen's intention. Zi Chen said that when they were outside, especially at the spirit breaking section, they should not be stingy with their identity. Sure enough, just as the two of them were about to leave, a person came up to them. "My master invites you. Do you have time?" The person bowed respectfully to Kant. Kant nodded slightly, then said to Maria, "You go back first. Don't wait for me." Maria immediately bowed and left. Kant followed the person upstairs. Hobson did not dare to be careless and stood at the stairs to welcome them. "Lord Spirit Breakers, why have you come to my spirit breaking section?" Hobson was also in the sixth power state, but he was a spirit caster. Even though he had a high status, he did not dare to put on airs in front of Kant. Zi Chen was not here. If he saw this scene, he would probably regret it to death. If he had known that this would happen, he would have called Kant over directly. Why would he have gone through so much trouble? "I am the new deputy manager of the Hall of Spiritual Spells. Today, I am here to learn how to make purchases." "Oh, you should know about the Hall of Spiritual Spells. My master is called Zi Chen." Hobson was shocked, but he did not show it on his face. He immediately smiled and said that he knew, and that there was some misunderstanding between them. After that, Hobson invited Kongda into his room. While the two of them were chatting, Hobson casually brought up the grudge that had happened in the past. It turned out that a person called Corpy came to find Billy and told him about the situation at the Hall of Spiritual Spells. For example, Frank was killed and an insensible girl was in charge. Kant heard this and said, "I didn't know much about this place before, so I don't understand. Everyone is doing business. Why would Billy stand up for someone else? Could there be other interests involved?" Hobson looked at Kant with an awkward expression, as if he was hesitating about whether to say it or not. "Lord, you can just tell me the truth. After all, I am also a businessman," Kant said with a smile. It seemed that Hobson was flattered by being called Lord. He said 2 words, "commission." Kant smiled. Zi Chen had predicted this. Chapter 51:17. In front of the Hall of Spiritual Spells, there was a 3rd strength state cultivator who had just been thrown out. A 4th strength state woman walked out and looked down at him. "Why don't you take a look at where you are? You're just a 3rd strength state cultivator and you dare to cause trouble here? I'll spare your life today. If there's a next time, I'll definitely kill you." A 3rd strength state cultivator could walk from the outside to the inside of the city. To outsiders, Pofa City was like heaven. However, when they arrived here, they realized that a 3rd strength state cultivator could barely survive. Only a 4th strength state cultivator would have a slightly better life. In fact, there were many 3rd strength state cultivators here. His aura was very weak. It seemed that he did not have much life left. In this place, energy was life. When people passed by and saw the 3rd strength state cultivator, their eyes flashed with disdain. As for pity, there was no such thing as pity. This was a place where the strong preyed on the weak. Zi Chen had seen too many people like this. Otherwise, he would not have been targeted time and time again. He walked forward and stood in front of the 3rd strength state cultivator. The 3rd strength state cultivator slowly raised his head and looked at Zi Chen. His face was pale. His life could disappear at any time. "Sir, I want exchange." He slowly raised his hand. Zi Chen saw that he was holding a black crystal in his hand. There were no energy waves on it. It looked like an ordinary ore. He did not know where it came from. I want to exchange for 10 strands of energy. The third strength state cultivator's aura was very weak. His life could disappear at any time. However, the price for this stone was not low. Zichen smiled and said, "Let's forget about the deal." He left behind 3 strands of energy and then turned to leave. The third strength state cultivator looked at the 3 strands of energy and then looked at Zichen, who was leaving. In this area, excluding the hall of spiritual spells that Zichen was in, there were 7 other halls. Other than that, there were 4 Pofa halls. Zichen went to a Pofa hall along the way. Most of the people there were Pofa breakers. Hence, the atmosphere was very harmonious. As for the hall of spiritual spells, there were all kinds of conflicts. In just one day, Zichen saw 3 cases of people being chased away, other than the first case of a person in the 3-strength realm. The other 2 cases were all in the 4-strength realm. Zichen walked into the hall of spiritual spells and looked at some resources. He didn't show any intention of exchanging them, so the woman who was leading the way started to mock him. In the end, he simply ignored Zichen. Obviously, he thought that a pauper had come. As the hall master, Zichen knew that these people would receive an additional commission for every transaction, and the ratio would be determined according to the amount of the transaction. Back in the hall of spiritual spells, Khan had also returned. This time he had gained a lot. He had learned a lot of secrets, and he had told Zichen everything, and keeps matter. "What do you plan to do?" After that, Kant looked at Zichen. Zichen thought for a moment and said, "Although he doesn't deserve death, we can't just let him go. Drive him away." Kant glanced at Zichen and didn't say anything. Actually, if it were up to him, he would have just slapped him to death in front of everyone. After all, he was in the right. If he let this guy live, it would be a disaster. However, since Zichen had spoken, Kant could only do as he was told. So he walked downstairs and asked, "Who is Keep?" Everyone looked at Keep subconsciously. Keep hurried forward and said, "My lord, I am Keep." Kant glanced at him and said, "You can get lost now." Ah, Keep was stunned. What was going on? "If you don't get lost, you will die." Kant sneered and said, "This is Lord Zichen's idea. He is kind. If it were me, colluding with outsiders and harming the interests of the Hall of Spiritual Spells, you would have died 800 times. Keep's face immediately turned pale. He obviously knew what Kant was talking about. Now, facing the cold stare of a 6-strength state breaker, he didn't dare to say anything. He took the item and left. At the door, a 3-strength state cultivator walked in and said that he wanted to exchange for resources. After everyone took a look, they all shook their heads. Some of them didn't even give him a good look. He was really audacious. He was just a 3-strength state cultivator. How dare he use a piece of broken stone to deceive them? Speaking of which, they weren't chased out on the spot because they restrained themselves. It was also because the boss here had just changed. The next day, Zichen went to the Hall of Spiritual Spells again. The result was not much different from the previous day. It seemed that people were being chased out every day. Indeed, in such a big Dharma Breaker city, there were only a few shops in total. Then, Zichen found something very interesting. The 3-strength state cultivator from the previous day didn't give up. He took the stone and went to one shop after another. After he was chased out, he went to the next one. Speaking of which, Zichen had a whole new level of respect for his persistence. Just for the 10-strength state? Finally, after the other party hit a wall again, Zichen walked in front of him. When the other party saw Zichen, surprise flashed in his eyes. Then he respectfully called out, "Lord." If it was someone else, they wouldn't have noticed this 3-strength state cultivator. Only Zichen had been wandering around these shops, so he could always see him. "What is that black stone?" Zichen asked. The other party shook his head and said, "We don't know, but it's definitely not simple." Zichen said again, "Are you sure it's not simple? You've already visited these 12 shops and let many people see it. How do you know, Lord? The other party looked at Zi Chen. Coincidentally, I've been observing the business of these halls of spiritual spells recently. That's why I always see you. Yesterday's encounter was the same. Hearing Zi Chen's words, the other party's expression became depressed. He thought that Lord had discovered the value of this black stone. Since we're fated, I'll give this black stone to you, Lord. The other party sighed. Perhaps this is really a very ordinary item. Zi Chen took the black stone and looked at it carefully. Indeed, there was nothing unusual about it. There's a limit to how hard this thing is. It can't be used to refine weapons. Zi Chen tried to pinch it, then shook his head. Then he used his energy to sense it, but there was still nothing unusual. Then Zi Chen tried to use his soul power. The black stone lit up. When the other party saw this, he still looked depressed. As for the light on the black stone, he didn't care. He thought that it was the light from Zi Chen's palm. After all, many people had tried it in the past few days. Zi Chen asked, "Where did you get this thing? How did you determine that it's worth 10 strands of energy?" The other party said honestly, "Lord, it was in an abandoned mine. It was once controlled by the spellbreakers. It was a place where soul stones were produced. But after the ore was mined, it was abandoned. Then we dug this out from the depths." At the end of his words, the other party scratched his head. "So we think that it's extraordinary and worth 10 strands of energy." Zi Chen laughed when he heard this. "I want this stone." He took out 10 strands of energy in exchange. Chapter 5118. The man was stunned. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. After all, he had failed so many times that he had decided to give up. He had never thought that he would finally complete a deal. After the deal was done, Zi Chen turned around and was about to leave. "Sir." The man hesitated and then shouted, "Sir, I'm Mi Chi. I have a lot of these stones." Then he looked at Zi Chen expectantly. Zi Chen furrowed his brows and looked troubled. Mi Chi was very nervous. He had thought that Lin Fan had made the deal because he had recognized the value of the stones. Of course, he wasn't sure if the stones were valuable or not. "How many do you have?" Zi Chen asked. "I have a few hundred stones now." And in the mine, Mi Chi was too embarrassed to continue. After all, he hadn't found the value of the stones yet. Zi Chen thought for a while and said, "How about this? If you only want to trade those few hundred stones, then I'll trade with you according to the price you mentioned. If you want to continue mining, then I won't ask for this price. I'll cut it in half at least." Mi Chi suddenly widened his eyes and said excitedly, "Sir, what did you say? You said that you're willing to buy enough stones from the mine?" Zi Chen nodded and said, "Yes, it's enough with 5 forces. Also, if you want to trade for a long time, these few hundred stones will also be worth 5 forces." "Yes, of course." Mi Chi nodded excitedly. Then he said guiltily, "To be honest, it's okay to give these few hundred stones to you. It's just that my brothers can't hold on any longer." So Zi Chen smiled and said, "It's okay. I don't have any ordinary forces now. Come with me. I'll give you the forces. Then you can bring the stones there to trade." As for the Hall of Spiritual Spells, Zi Chen had already seen everything and had a preliminary plan in his heart. So it was time to go back. Mi Chi followed behind Zi Chen. He had never been so excited before. He had thought that everything was in vain. He didn't expect that there would be a glimmer of hope. Following Zi Chen to the Hall of Spiritual Spells, Mi Chi saw the service staff calling him Lord. Only then did he realize what kind of status Zi Chen had. Then he saw Zi Chen holding the stone and tossing it to a service staff member, saying, "Put it on the shelf. The price is 8 strands of strength." The other party took it and asked, "Sir, what is this?" Zi Chen thought for a moment and said, "Let's call it black crystal. I don't know what it is for now." Hearing this, Mickey was very disappointed. It seemed that even his master did not know what this thing was for. Then Zichen asked someone to take out 500 streams of power and give it to Mitch first. When Mi-Chi wanted to thank him, he found that his master was gone. He was deeply moved. These few hundred strands of power were given to him, just like that. Isn't my lord afraid that I'll run away with the power? However, when he looked at the ore placed there, he shook his head and smiled. His lordship had obviously taken it back as trash. This made him feel very embarrassed. Zichen walked up the stairs. The power contained in the stone was actually the power of the Shadow Destroyer. In the entire Dharma-breaking city, only Zichen knew the value of this stone. To other people it was worthless, but to Zichen, not to mention 10 streams of power. Even if it was 100, he would buy it. The reason why he did not give a high price was because of human nature. In this world, the strong preyed on the weak. Once he raised the price, not to mention what Mi-Chi would do, his companions could also guess the value of this stone. Then he would naturally contact other people. Of course, the others could not see the value of this stone, but it did not stop them from buying it. As a result, the price of this stone had been rising for Zichen. Sometimes it was not wrong to be kind, but did not mean that all kind people were fools. Kant came back and happened to see the two sides trading. He stepped forward and took out a stone to sense it carefully. There was nothing strange. He said with a surprised face, "Are you sure that the hall master asked you to collect enough?" Hearing this, Mi-Chi looked anxious. Could it be that things had changed? The salesperson immediately nodded, then pointed at the stone beside him and said, "Sir, put another stone on it. The price is 8 streams of power." Kant took a look. It was indeed so. Then he did not say anything else and walked upstairs. When Mi-Chi left, he insisted on 10 streams of power because he had said that the stone was for Sir. Kant went to find Zichen and told him that the matter was settled. He could give him a 5% discount on the original price. This way, even if Zichen kept the 5% discount, the profit would be the same as before. With this price, if the quantity is large, there will still be a discount. But this needs to be discussed later. Kant said, "Right, the stone you received should have other uses, right?" "What do you mean?" Zichen looked at Kant. Kant said, "If it was trash, would you take it back?" Zichen smiled and did not give any response. This made Kangda mutter to himself. Could it really be a piece of junk? After Mi-Chi took the rest of the power back, everyone was very excited. At least they did not have to worry about survival. After the excitement died down, a bearded man said, "Say, do you think this thing is really a rare good thing?" Everyone looked at the bearded man. The bearded man said, "Think about it. No one wants it except this person." Could it be that he saw the value and purposely lowered the price? "Impossible," Mi-Chi said. "You didn't see that Sir only put it on sale in the store. It's only 8 streams of power." The bearded man continued, "Maybe it's just a trick? After all, those people are too sneaky. If it's really priceless, won't we be cheated? Then what do you think we should do?" Mi-Chi asked. "Go and discuss with that person. See if you can raise the price to 10 streams of power," the bearded man said. "Then I'll know if it's valuable or not." "Are you crazy? Sir said before that if there are only a few hundred pieces, we can buy 10 streams of power, but the transaction is limited to one time. If we want more in the future, we can buy 5 streams of power. This is long-term." Mi-Chi stared at the bearded man. "I say, Duanai, don't tell me you want me to go back on my words." The bearded man said, "Fine, we don't have much say now. Wait until we accumulate enough power, then we'll talk about it. Right, during this time, don't be idle. Continue to ask other stores and see if they want it. If they don't want it, I've gone many times. This time is different. You can say that one store has bought enough. If they don't want it, others won't be able to buy it. Naturally, they won't come to their store. I'm not going." Mi-Chi shook his head and said, "I'm going to mine. If you want to go, go by yourself." Chapter 50-119. 2 days later, Michi came with 400 crystals. This time, he exchanged them for 2,000 strands of energy. According to Big Beard's instructions, he had to see how the ore was selling. But he didn't see it at first glance. His heart skipped a beat. Could it really be a good thing? Was it just for show? So he asked how the crystals were selling yesterday. The salesperson pointed to the corner and said, "It's all there." It turned out that they were all there, and there were almost 100 of them. They were priced at 8 strands of energy each. No one was interested. At the same time, Big Beard took the crystals and went to the other halls of spiritual law. But without exception, they were all kicked out. Even if he told them that the other halls of spiritual law were collecting enough, they were still kicked out mercilessly. Big Beard was very depressed. He reluctantly went to all the halls of spiritual law. As for the Broken Law Hall, he didn't go. He was afraid that those who didn't follow the rules would beat him to death. When he came back, he asked Michi how it was. Michi told him that there were more than 100 crystals in the corner that no one was interested in. Then Michi asked Big Beard how it was. Big Beard shook his head and sighed. In the room, Zi-Chen took out in ore and tried to refine it. Only by using the power of the Shadow Destroyer could he feel that it was extraordinary. As expected, with the guidance of the power of the Shadow Destroyer, the energy inside was divided into 2 and absorbed by Zi-Chen. It actually took him 2 hours to refine this piece of crystal, which made him very surprised. Of course, it also proved that the crystal was very valuable. In Zi-Chen's hand, the crystal that had lost its energy turned into powder and disappeared. Zi-Chen didn't take the crystals immediately. He had other considerations. On the 3rd day, the discount went back to normal, which made many people feel regretful. After all, a 5% discount was very worthwhile for them. Zi-Chen still went out to check the situation in the other halls of spiritual law. Almost every day he saw people being kicked out. Of course, he also saw people taking black ores to the shops and being kicked out. Seeing this, Zi-Chen just smiled faintly and pretended not to see it. A few days later, Zi-Chen estimated that it was about time and released the news that there would be a 10% discount in the Hall of Spiritual Spells in 7 days. Once this news came out, it immediately caused quite a stir. After all, such a discount was unprecedented in history. The other spiritual spell halls were also alarmed. However, they didn't have much of a reaction. There were only so many halls of magical spells in Shattering Law City. Everyone would buy what they needed from the nearest hall of magical spells. Even if there was a discount, how long could it last? In the end, he still had to come back. They really disdained this kind of catcalling. Apart from the loss of his own interests, there were no other benefits. However, they could also predict that in the next few days, business would naturally not be good, or even very bad. In order to prevent such a thing from happening, a hall master of a hall of spiritual spells suddenly came up with an idea. He asked everyone who came here to spend an extra 10 strands of energy to buy an identity badge here. With this identity token, one would be able to shop normally in this place. Otherwise, one would have to spend 10% more. One was an unprecedented 10% discount, while the other was a 10% increase in price. It didn't seem like a difficult choice. There were even some people who were cursing the profiteers. However, right after that, the other halls of spiritual spells followed suit. 10 strands of energy for one identity badge. Otherwise, the price would be increased by 10%. This made many people complain. They even started to complain about Zi-Chen's discount. There were also some people who said that this was a scheme that both sides had discussed long ago. For example, the price of the item would be increased first, and then a discount would be given. In fact, the price would be the same as the normal price. However, this way they would lose the money to buy identity badges. Luckily, from the looks of it, Zi-Chen's Hall of Spiritual Spells didn't have any intention of selling identity badges. This made everyone feel a little bit better. However, There were also some people who thought that this was something that would happen sooner or later. In fact, the 8 halls of spiritual spells had already discussed it. It seemed like a price reduction, but in fact it was a disguised price increase. After Zichen heard the news, he was happy. These people were really relying on their big businesses and didn't care about small profits. In this way, they could also get their own identity badges. In these few days, Zichen asked Kant to stock up more, especially those that were often sold. He wanted to make sure that there wouldn't be a shortage. After Hobson found out about Zichen's activities, he originally gave a 5% discount. Now he gave a 3% discount. Mi-Chi came again with the crystals. This time the person in charge of the exchange was Maria. In fact, she was on the 2nd floor and didn't need to use her for such a small matter. When she found out that Master Zichen wanted to exchange for the crystals, she came. She knew very well that there was no profit in this kind of exchange. The others were too lazy to accept it. They just didn't dare to say it. While Maria was counting the resources, Mi-Chi asked carefully, "How are these things selling?" Maria smiled. Mi-Chi also smiled awkwardly. Then he asked, "What are you doing with these crystals?" "Currently they are in the warehouse." Maria said, "When the warehouse is full, I will ask Master Zichen and see what he wants." Master Zichen. Mi-Chi was surprised. "Which Master Zichen?" Maria smiled. "How many Masters Zichen are there in Pofa City?" Mi-Chi was really shocked. Then he sighed. I see. He came from the outside. His previous superiors were Miao, Pengfei, and Hu Zhang. Naturally, he had heard of Zichen's name. If Zichen hadn't changed the situation outside, it would have been almost impossible for them to reach the 3 strengths realm. No wonder his lordship wanted these ores. Only his lordship would do such a thankless task. Up until now, Mitch had completely confirmed that those ores were very ordinary things. As for why Master would do such a thankless thing, it was because Master was kind. There were many rumors about this in the outside world, and there were many in this place as well. Before leaving, Mi-Chi asked, "Can we participate in the 10% discount?" Of course, everyone can, including us. Everyone was looking forward to it, including the staff. After all, they needed resources too. That day finally came. Early in the morning, there was already a long line outside. Not to mention whether it was a scheme to raise the price, at least the 10% discount today was real. No one wanted to miss out on such a bargain. The door of the Hall of Magic opened, and a man walked out. It was Zichen. He looked at the people waiting outside and said, "Everyone, I heard that the other shops are selling jade plates. We can use this opportunity to sell jade plates." In the crowd, many people's faces changed. Selling jade plates was obviously not a good thing. Zichen said, "Because of the big discount today, if you want to buy a jade plate, you can buy one with an extra 10 streams of energy if you spend more than 500 streams of energy. As for those who don't have enough energy but want to buy one, you need to spend 30 streams of energy to buy one." Immediately, there was an uproar. Someone questioned, "Why do you need 30 when everyone else has 10? You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.